Thank you.
Okay, good morning, everyone. Just a couple of quick opening remarks before we dive in. First, I just want to acknowledge Joyce and Sadie, who are both ill, and hopefully they are recovering and feeling well. I got to attend the NCSHA conference in Phoenix. I suspect maybe Ruth Ann may be mentioning that as well, but just want to say that there were a number of great board sessions designed specifically for board members and for board chairs, which I really appreciated. It was a great experience to meet other board members and board chairs from across the country and to hear about what they're doing. And it's worth noting that New York is acknowledged for being really top of the game in terms of the production and the rating. There was a whole session on rating, which was really interesting. And there's this, tension between, mission on the one hand and being a lender of last resort to some degree, and also profit and the overall attributes of rating. And I think, we're doing it really well. I just want to say that. And those in the room acknowledge that as well, which I think is really a tribute to all of you. There are a couple of items that you'll see coming around in the nature of board engagement being added, board members being added to internal announcements and job postings and ribbon cuttings and groundbreakings and that sort of thing. So hopefully we'll get an opportunity to see each other outside of the board meetings themselves. I just want to again acknowledge Will and the staff for pulling all the materials together. It's no small effort, and trying to make them as user-friendly as possible, pulling out the resolutions and things like that, just to make it easier to get through the materials. And last but not least, we're working on the schedule for next year's meetings, including hopefully a board retreat, which we'll talk about at some point. And so a lot going on and a lot to cover. So with that, I'll turn things over to Will to open the meeting.
Great, thank you, Chair. To begin, we note the following: Jesse Olzak, representing the Director of the Budget, and Chris Curtis, representing the Commissioner of Taxation and Finance, are participating in the meeting via video conference from the Division of the Budget's Conference Center at the Capitol Building, room 131 in Albany. B. Gonzalez is participating in the meeting via video conference from HCR's office in Syracuse at 620 West Erie Boulevard, Suite 312. In accordance with the Open Meetings Law, notice of our locations has been made public, and the public has the right to attend and observe the proceedings from these locations. Now I will ask for motions and seconds to call to order, consider each item on the agenda, and later adjourn the meetings of the New York State Housing Finance Agency, the Affordable Housing Corporation, and the Housing Trust Fund Corporation. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Second. I will now ask for individual votes from each member of the HFA board, the AHC board, and the HTFC board, starting with Chair Weiss.
Aye.
Commissioner Wisnauskas.
Aye.
Mr. Olzak.
Aye.
Mr. Curtis.
Aye.
Ms. Gonzalez.
Aye.
Mr. McIntyre.
Aye.
We will use these votes as items are voted on throughout today's meeting unless a board member decides to vote differently or needs to recuse themselves. I now ask for a motion and second to call to order, consider each agenda item, and later adjourn the meeting of the HFA Finance and Program Committee.
So moved.
Second.
For the individual votes of each committee member, we will accept the previous votes of committee members Chair Weiss, Commissioner Wisnauskas, and Mr. Olzak. Meetings of the HFA Board, AHC Board, HTFC Board, and HFA Finance and Program Committee are officially open.
Okay, I'll turn things over to President Wisnauskas for her President's report.
Hi, and good morning, everyone. Happy October. I also wish both Sadie and Joyce speedy recoveries. It is they are notably missing here today on the side of the table, so we look forward to seeing them next month. I was also in Phoenix, as Steve mentioned, along with some of the staff, and it was really a great opportunity to learn about other states who are facing many of the same challenges we are and have come up with similar but oftentimes different and creative solutions to the problem. And so it's always a great opportunity to sort of step back from our everyday work and be able to be a little creative and think about how we might better fine tune or create some new programs to address our housing issues in New York State. It's also been very busy with events. Since we approve projects every month, the flow on from that is that we then are at many ribbon cuttings and groundbreakings. And so in the middle of September, we did a celebration for the completion of Station 25 in Albany, which was a 51 apartment project. On the 19th, we did a celebration for completion of a 40-unit Mitchell-Lama called Cobb's Hill in Rochester. At the end of September, on the 25th, we did an event to celebrate the completion of Bridge Rockaway, which was a 174-unit project in Brownsville, Brooklyn. Last week, back up in Monroe County, we did the celebration for Marketplace Senior Apartments, a 150-unit all-electric building. This past Monday, I was not there, but some folks were up at Utica celebrating the completion of the Johnson Park Green Community Apartments, which is a 62-apartment project up there in Utica. And just this week on Tuesday, I was up in Albany myself at the ribbon cutting for Steamboat Square, which is a 88-unit project, both rehab and new construction for the Albany Housing Authority. So it's busy and it's great. It's nice to be able to celebrate our work and actually to have a lot of local electeds come out and really see the impact of the work we do, which always feels sort of like the best part. Interestingly, on the event that we were at on Tuesday, Congressman Paul Tonko was there, and he spent quite a bit of time talking about the connection between our work and what goes on in Washington, D.C., and sort of demonstrated a point that feels very salient at this time of year, that we very much rely on the federal government, and there's a lot of new money that has come, that we see coming through the board, that comes from a Congress that's often very divided and that is narrowly approving dollars that we are getting. And so when we are successful in the work we do, a lot of times that does come down to sort of election season, and we certainly need partners in Washington who are willing to push resources that we rely on very much so. When we look at the agenda today, we have some exciting things. We're authorizing funding for new affordable housing in the Hudson Valley, additional funding for projects in Westchester and Buffalo, some downtown revitalization funding for projects in the Mohawk Valley, the North Country, Harlem, Capitol, Western New York, funding for land banks for our resilient retrofit program. I was going to mention at the top two on the heels of, I'm sure you all saw this morning, lots of news coverage of the hurricane and a sort of stark reminder of the need to keep resiliency measures up for New Yorkers as we face another hurricane season and continue that. Also some funding for our rural and urban community investment fund. And these types of projects are not really possible without federal money that flows through the state, through HUD, from EPA, through the Inflation Reduction Act, and also a lot of state money that the governor and the legislature authorize that allow us to do our work and to serve the communities. You know, it's nice to hear Steve say that New York gets a shout out. We really work hard to spend every single dollar that we get from the federal government and the state government, make sure that it is in communities and in neighborhoods and impacting New York's families. And I think the role of government in housing development is as prominent today as it's ever been. And while I didn't necessarily want the housing crisis to get to a national level, it certainly is nice to have the conversation elevated to that level in terms of what types of resources we really need. So as we head into election season, definitely anxious and looking forward to what that may mean for us in terms of our continuing to be able to do the work we do. And with that, I'll turn it back to you.
Great, thanks. Okay, we'll now begin the HTFC agenda with the action items. Item 1, the adoption of the minutes listed in the agenda, which shall be deemed approved absent corrections. And Will, you've got a few corrections.
A few corrections that we'll note for the final.
Okay, perfect, thank you. Next on the agenda, item 2, resolution authorizing the memorandum of understanding, New York State DHR, and Daniel Byer, Vice President of Rental Assistance Programs, will present this item and the next 2. Daniel?
Hi, good morning, everybody.
Hi.
This first item is one that's important to me and Becky Ketnick and the Fair Housing team as well. We've worked for well over a year on this, and it was a governor's state of the state item. After some delays, we have been able to reach an agreement on a memorandum of understanding with the Division of Human Rights. This will help the entire state enforce the source of income discrimination law that was approved by the state legislature in 2019 and put some teeth into it. It's going to be a great partnership with DHR, and we are very much looking forward to them. This is being covered by federal Section 8 administrative funds, so it's being done with HUD's full support and cooperation. We are allocating the first round of funding for the first year to start at $832,000, but this is a 5-year MOU, and we're hoping that this effort can grow and turn into something that will be really meaningful in terms of changing the dynamic in New York's housing market. So, respectfully submitting this for approval.
Thanks, Dan. It's a great one.
Tyler in our Albany office is going to present the resolution. Tyler?
Now before the HTFC board is a resolution transmitted in connection with this item. Assuming the motion and second previously recorded, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
The motion is carried and the resolution adopted.
Thank you. Next is item 3, resolution authorizing reimbursement to DHCR for service level contract with OCFS. Daniel?
Okay, another nice partnership. As you know, we have been implementing Emphasis Elite, the new technology solution for our Section 8 program, the voucher program. We're getting ready to take the next big step in that implementation, which is going to be to actually stand up public-facing portals for applicants and participants. This is a big step, and it has to be done in cooperation with ITS using the ny.gov authentication module that's used statewide. We want to make sure this is as seamless as possible for our participants and our applicants, and that they're able to navigate the technology and understand it. Emphasis provides some support in this regard, but to bolster that and make sure that people can fully utilize the system as soon as possible, we are collaborating with OCFS, who actually maintains a call center for the entire state. They serve many other state agencies with this same service that we're now going to share via DHCR, and we're going to pay our share of their overall cost depending on the call volume. So looking forward to getting going with that. We'll be rolling out the portals starting in Westchester County probably by December or January.
I have a question in Syracuse. The team that's going to be answering the calls is in Albany, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the training comes from us?
From us.
Okay.
Yeah.
Excellent. All right.
Yeah, that'll be the first step. As soon as we sign the MOU, we'll start training them.
Can you say that? We couldn't quite hear B. Can you say it again, what you were saying?
Yeah, that'll be the first step, is actually after we sign the MOU, we'll be developing scripts.
No, we're not muted.
And the good news is we have a lot of scripts from COVID era.
Or they muted us.
That's what I meant.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that the call center was in Albany, because I had a really weird experience calling one of our departments, and I was talking to someone who clearly was not in the United States.
Yeah, they're state employees.
Where do you see it on there? Up in the
Yeah.
middle?
On the bottom, in the middle.
Oh, no, that's Albany.
Syracuse, can
I think
you
might
hear
be
us?
right, but I don't. Dan,
Albany?
can you hear
Yes.
us? Oh, you can. Oh,
Oh,
okay,
you
great.
can hear us. Okay.
Can, just so you know, Albany can hear both Syracuse and New York City. So.
Okay,
Oh, okay.
super, thank you.
Mr.
No, I was
McIntyre.
just saying it's really great to see, like, working across state agencies is really hard. These are big organizations. I think it's like the testament to working with human rights, to working with ITS, and like working across all.
You can
these
speak up a
agencies.
little bit, that would help.
Because you might be muted.
So,
Yeah, it is, it's hard to do new things with other agencies.
no,
I-
I guess last time, I just think that this is an amazing testament to this agency. Now I think the idea of like the risk comment that the chairman made earlier about how externally view our finance side, but also how we're managing stuff internally, and like working across state agencies is really hard. These are siloed traditionally, and I think it's a testament to the staff and wanting to do really amazing things, and so it's great. Third time's a charm.
Noted. Okay, any other comments, thoughts? Okay. Need the resolution.
Tyler?
Now before the HTFC board is a resolution transmitted in connection with this item. Assuming the motion and second previously recorded, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
The motion is carried and the resolution adopted.
Okay, terrific. Item 4, resolution authorizing Section 8 inspections contract. Daniel.
Okay, last one. The state HCR has used an inspections contractor in New York City for its New York City voucher program since 2017. A couple of years ago, that was expanded at OSC's recommendation to also include in quality control statewide for our other local administrators. All of these services are provided by one vendor. That vendor currently is CVR, but in consultation with the agency's procurement unit, we have rebid this service through our special purpose local administrator panel, and CGI was the lowest bidder. So we are seeking authorization to execute the next contract with CGI going forward. It times well with the federal government's implementation of the new Inspire standards, which are going to be a learning curve. So I think this is the right time to make the transition. There will hopefully be a little bit of crossover between the outgoing vendor and the incoming vendor. We're familiar with both firms, and both firms have other work in the Section 8 program. So looking forward to a cooperation there. Looking to execute a 5-year contract with CGI, pending the completion of due diligence and other approvals internally. Sure.
So, being Syracuse, the as we go through the process, the vetting process here, what is their commitment to MWBEs, right? Since they're new to us.
Yeah. Well, CGI actually currently is the PDCA sub.
Okay.
And they are EHP contractor. They have sought a waiver on this contract that's being reviewed by the MWB shop.
Okay. Because I just worry that sometimes we just let people slide instead of pushing them to do what we think is the right thing, right?
Yeah.
So if they want our contracts, they need to step up in that area. That's my opinion.
I reinforced that message with them when we were negotiating. That's part of why this is still pending.
Okay.
And I know DECO is going to as well.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Now before the HTFC board is a resolution transmitted in connection with this item. Assuming the motion and second previously recorded, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
The motion is carried and the resolution adopted.
Item 5, resolution authorizing CDBG Economic Development Award. Crystal Loeffler, President of the Office of Community Renewal, will present this item and the next 3 items.
Good morning, thank you. The Office of Community Renewal offers CDBG Economic Development Program assistance through an open round application. The City of Cortland has requested $212,000 in CDBG economic development funding to support a county-wide micro enterprise program, which is expected to support up to 6 micro businesses. The Office of Community Renewal is seeking board approval to award funds and enter into a grant agreement with the City of Cortland to begin these program activities. Details are in the memo and happy to answer any questions.
Now before the HTFC board is a resolution transmitted in connection with this item. Assuming the motion and second previously recorded, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Motion is carried and the resolution adopted.
Okay. Item 6, resolution authorizing Downtown Revitalization Initiative and New York Forward Grant Agreements. Crystal?
The Department of State, or DOS, serves as the lead agency for Downtown Revitalization Initiative, or DRI, activities statewide, and awarded projects are assigned to participating state agencies with appropriate expertise and related project portfolios. HCR, for example, is typically assigned downtown grant programs or grants that support rehab of non-for-profit facilities, as they align with the structure of HCR's New York Main Street grant program. Other projects that will access HCR's multifamily financing are also assigned and advanced as HCR resources are awarded. In addition to DRI, in 2022, a new program called New York Forward was developed to support smaller and rural communities with enhanced technical assistance and smaller scale awards. Instead of a $10 million million award for a single neighborhood. New York Forward allows each REDC region to select 2 or 3 communities to receive or split $4.5 million for planning and project implementation. Awards for round 8 of the DRI and round 2 of New York Forward were announced throughout this summer. And our team has been working closely with DOS and Empire State Development to determine best fit among the agencies for contracting for each of the awarded projects. We are presenting 23 DRI projects totaling $12.8 million and 16 New York Forward projects totaling $9.7 million, and requesting approval to enter into grant agreements to administer these awards. The full list of projects is included in the memo, and I'm happy to answer any questions from the members.
Yeah, like obviously like election season, using federal grants, using money, these are important projects in regions that perhaps, don't recognize the value. Are we doing a good job of marketing that this is New York State's money coming in to support these revitalization projects?
I think, Crystal, you probably would know better, but I think the DRI initiative generally has its own gestalt. I don't know what the right word is, but they do a fair amount of stuff around all that money, right? A lot of events and things.
Yes, absolutely. So there's usually a big launch when the round for applications opens, where there's marketing and press events to make the availability of the resources available, right, to encourage communities to apply and participate. So, there's branding associated with it, marketing, people are out on the road providing technical assistance and training. And then each time a community is selected to participate and receive this $10 million award, either the governor or lieutenant governor are usually out at an event, holding up the $10 million check. It is certainly well marketed.
Okay, and yeah, just probably, I don't know if we're doing mini press releases into local markets around this stuff, because I think that stuff does get picked up, and it's great that if we can lead on messaging for the work that the state is doing on this stuff, it'd be great.
We're going to start sending clips to board members.
Okay, perfect.
You'll see all those regional clips.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah,
That's
it's great. They do a great job.
Great, thanks, Crystal.
Now before the HTFC board is a resolution transmitted in connection with this item. Assuming the motion and second previously recorded, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
The motion is carried and the resolution adopted.
Okay, item 7, resolution authorizing DRI amendment, development, Shenango Corporation. Crystal?
And so we're requesting an amendment for an existing DRI award. This is an award was made to an organization in Norwich called Development Shenango Corporation with a slate of DRI Round 5 projects in January of 2023. In Norwich, a different DRI project has been determined to be infeasible, and in consultation with the Department of State, we've determined that $140,000 should be reallocated, and we'd like to place it within the contract that we are administering. So the idea is an unsuccessful project, that money just doesn't disappear for the community. It gets kind of rolled into another more flexible project, which we have a small project grant fund in the community. So we are requesting board approval to increase the Development Shenango existing contract, and this reallocation of existing DRI resources will result in a new contract total of $905,000. Full details are in the memo, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you.
Now before the HTFC board is a resolution transmitted in connection with this item. Assuming the motion and second previously recorded, all in favor, please say aye.
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 The motion is carried and the resolution adopted.
Thank you. Item 8, resolution authorizing land bank initiative awards. Crystal, last time.
As you know, significant funding has been made available in the 3 recent budget cycles to support the services and expenses of land banks. We have offered 2 phases of funding for existing land banks, including operational support in a first phase, and then a second phase funding for acquisition, demolition, and other capital activities. We have now made the land bank funding available on an open round basis to support land banks projects as they deplete the funding in their existing contracts or new needs are identified. So this month we are requesting approval to award up to $6.5 million in land bank initiative funding to 4 land banks. This includes 3 land banks that have successfully completed $2 million contracts with a variety of projects, and a new award to the newly approved Herkimer County Land Bank. The full details are in the memo, and I'm happy to answer any questions from the members.
Do we have a sense that the places that have land banks are outbuilding and out sort of spending on housing versus communities that don't? Or I don't know.
I mean, I think, Crystal, you should tell me. You know, it's like house by house. So I think sometimes even if they're doing a lot of work, like one 50-unit building is like more, or one 50-unit apartment building will like in any other community would outpace. But I don't know, Crystal, like they're trying, right?
Yes, and you know, I think in prior reports we've talked about slow spending, but I will say they have really picked it up this summer. They are much more active. They are completing projects. They are moving this money, and it's really nice to have this flexible funding to support their specific needs. Right? They're all using it a little bit differently. Some communities are really focused on demolition right now to make way for new development on these vacant sites. Some are filling gaps in other multifamily financing sources with this funding, and some are just doing standalone projects with this funding alone. So, it's an interesting new tool, and I'm happy to see it taking off a little bit better now. But in terms of James's question, the capacity varies widely among them. So it's a little bit hard to attribute the success of one land bank to development widely in a community or their service area, but there are a large number of active and successful land banks, certainly.
Is there a way to share the experience among the land banks so that they can learn from each other and maybe evolve in the way they approach the use of the resource?
The land banks are really interesting. So they have a land bank association, and they are the most tightly knit, well-coordinated group I've ever encountered. Right, most of the non-for-profits that we work with really do not have that connection and formal collaboration, but the land banks really do, and it's been really helpful in working with them, right? Because if I have a conversation and share with one of them, they all hear about it within the week and kind of learn lessons from one another.
Now before the HTFC board is a resolution transmitted in connection with this item. Assuming the motion and second previously recorded, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
The motion is carried and the resolution adopted.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We're going to table items 9 and 10 and take them up at the HFA board. So we'll skip to item 11, resolution authorizing resilient retrofits round 2 awards, and Rachel Weeder will, Chief of Staff, Homeownership and Community Development, will present this item and the next 5.
That's me. Hi.
Hi.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Yes, so as Ruth Ann said, while the hurricane is hitting Florida, I'm here to present several items to help New Yorkers become more flood resilient. The first is resilient retrofits. This is the second round of the program we're doing. We issued a NOFA and got 3 qualified responses from Community Development Financial Institutions, CDFIs, Home Headquarters, which is in Syracuse, the Center for New York City Neighborhoods in New York, and Community Development Long Island Corporation in Long Island. And the first round of the program has gone wildly successful. I brought it to the board about a year ago for authorization to make a change in the term of the program. And since then, we've had a large uptick. We are nearly fully committed with 52 homes under construction and 202 eligible applications. And so this is requesting authorization to award those 3 CDFIs up to $20 million. Any questions?
Now before the HTFC board is a resolution transmitted in connection with this item. Assuming the motion and second previously recorded, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
The motion is carried and the resolution adopted.
Thank you. Item 12, resolution authorizing EPA Environmental Justice Award from the United States Environmental Protection Agency and to enter into subrecipient agreements with 2 community-based organizations. Rachel?
Yes. Office of Resilient Homes and Communities applied to the EPA for a government-to-government grant of $1 million to award these two community-based organizations in Brooklyn, Uprose, which is in Sunset Park, and the South Brooklyn Industrial Development Corporation in Gowanus, to do community resiliency planning. And so they want to use these funds under the environmental justice principles of involving community members who have been adversely impacted by environmental injustices in a planning process for what assets they would want in the community that would bring resiliency and sustainability. So the request is to sign an agreement for the $1 million with the EPA to accept the funds and immediately dole it out to these two organizations and manage that project with them.
Are there restrictions from the EPA and how the money is spent?
What we applied for and were awarded is planning and some pre-development. So they can use it, it's flexible because it's planning, doesn't have to go towards capital. They'll do a series of community meetings, and then if they are able to get to that point, they would then hire engineers, architects, and start to do a little bit of the pre-development. The idea is that these organizations, along with our office staff, would guide them in applying for other federal or state programs that would provide the capital funds to actually do the project if they get there in their planning exercise.
Thank you.
And this is great too, because again, communities without pre-development money to basically support this is like impossible. So we're never going to get community scale resilience. And the fact that this program allows for community buy-in is also important given the structural changes it might take. So it's really great.
Thank you.
Now before the HTFC board is a resolution transmitted in connection with this item. Assuming the motion and second previously recorded, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
The motion is carried and the resolution adopted.
Okay, item 13, resolution authorizing the Nature Conservancy Award to administer Blue Buffers buyout program. Rachel.
In the 2022 Environmental Bond Act, there's $250 million for the purpose of buying flood-prone homes and demolishing them and returning the land to nature to serve as a natural buffer for flooding. We also, in this past year's state budget, received operational funds to support the program because the Bond Act money is purely capital. So we put out a notice of funding availability to nonprofit organizations to apply to administer the program with us. And we received a qualified application from the Nature Conservancy that an internal committee has voted to approve an award. They are subbing the work and partnering with the Center for New York City Neighborhoods as well. And so the request to the board today is to authorize us to engage in a subrecipient agreement with the Nature Conservancy for up to the $25 million in operation funds, which would be over a 3-year contract.
The one question, are you guys engaged? Two things. The one, Nature Conservancy has a component called the Nature Vest, which is very focused on sort of the financing aspects of doing a lot of this work, which is very much linking up to like the insurance benefits for communities that are sort of doing a lot of this work. So I don't know if one, if Nature Vest is involved in the project, and two, whether the Department of what am I thinking of? Insurance Commissioner, Financial Services, DFS is involved in this, because this is a really important monitoring project. If the state is investing all of this money, we obviously see rising insurance rates in communities across the country, especially because of climate risk. This is something that if we're actually investing in communities in the states, are there benefits to communities on the insurance side? And it would be interesting to have DFS monitor this, because like, if people are lowering the risk premium and they're not getting the benefit for it, like that's an extractionary practice that we should be, we're investing in the resiliency of communities, and that matters.
There is a FEMA program for community rating system, CSR, and that does this. When a community does things like remove homes that have severe repetitive loss through a buyout program, as a community, it can decrease their insurance premiums. They can sort of apply to be in this FEMA system for that, but that's an interesting thought about DFS. In terms of Nature Vest, it was not actually in their application to use NatureVest at all. But I think, once we launch the program and get out in communities and really see that there is a desire for this program, right? We know the data shows us there's a lot of communities that should or do need it, but whether homeowners are willing and localities are willing to participate in a program like this, we have sort of yet to see. But we are thinking about if there is a huge interest in it, how could we maybe grow
Yeah.
grow
I mean,
the
this is great.
program?
This is really great work.
Yeah.
And this is over 3 years, the $25 million.
Correct.
And so will we hear from the Nature Conservancy about how they're spending the money? Will we get like an update?
Probably daily.
That would be too frequent.
Oh, the board. Yeah, well, we will hear probably daily, but we would be happy. I would be happy to come back and give updates on the program.
Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you. Okay.
Now before the HTFC board is a resolution transmitted in connection with this item. Assuming the motion and second previously recorded, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
The motion is carried and the resolution adopted.
Thank you. Item 14, resolution approving the Weeks Marine Incorporated construction contract increase for living breakwaters. Rachel.
Living Breakwaters is a rebuild by design project off the shore of Staten Island that RHC has been working on for years. Weeks Marine is the primary construction firm working on the project. These funds that we're requesting were budgeted for, just not allocated in their contract. We had a celebratory event 2 weeks ago to celebrate construction being complete. During the event, you could still see a crane was out there. There's a little bit more construction work, really buttoning up sort of things that are being done and need to be done in the next few months. So we're requesting these funds to be able to finish out that work.
Okay.
Now before the HTFC board is a resolution transmitted in connection with this item. Assuming the motion and second previously recorded, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
The
The motion is carried and the resolution adopted.
Item 15, resolution authorizing Billion Oyster Project 1 one-year contract extension. Sorry.
So this is the Billion Oyster project is also one of our subs for the Living Breakwaters project. It is the living part of the Living Breakwaters where they're harvesting oysters in the Hudson River now that once mature will be moved over to the breakwaters and serve as like a natural filtration system and help take some of the wave impact from coming on the shore of Staten Island. That we are requesting 1-year extension to accommodate sort of the natural timeline of how these are progressing.
Just one question. I know there's been articles written about oysters actually dying. Are they working on solving that? Do you know? I have no idea. Like that there was a problem with them dying, actually.
For certain projects,
Yeah.
because maybe they didn't wait till maturity
Fair
to.
enough. I have no idea. But anyways, just curious.
Also, just so you know, there is a process in which when you set them, you then monitor them to make sure that there's health. Rachel, I've been working on this while you were out. So there is a monitoring period that we're working with the DEC to make sure that the oysters are healthy and are going to have a thriving breakwater there. So there is a process to try to mitigate that loss.
Okay, that's great. There's an answer.
Yeah. Thank you.
Overseen by lawyers. Yes.
Now before the HTFC board is a resolution transmitted in connection with this item. Assuming the motion and second previously recorded, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
The motion is carried and the resolution adopted.
Okay, item 16, resolution authorizing Village of Malvern 1-year contract extension. Rachel, last time.
The Village of Malvern on Long Island is along the Mill River and was one of the resiliency projects that RHC has been working on. It's a stormwater drainage project that is nearly complete, and we're asking for additional time with the village to be able to complete the project with no change in the budget.
Great.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Now before the HTFC board is a resolution transmitted in connection with this item. Assuming the motion and second previously recorded, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion is carried and the resolution adopted.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Rachel.
Thank you. Item 17, resolution authorizing the secret documentation and classification of the Churchview Commons, Beechwood Family Apartments, and Medford Gardens projects. And Heather Spitzberg, Environmental Unit Director, will present the item. Heather?
Good morning. This morning I'm recommending 2 projects be classified as unlisted and 1 project be classified as type 1, and all 3 projects be given a negative declaration pursuant to the New York State Environmental Quality Review Act regulations, otherwise known as SEQR. The 2 unlisted projects are Churchview Commons and Beechwood Family Homes. Churchview Commons proposes new construction of 45 units at 1049 Wegman Road in the town of Gates in Monroe County. The Beechwood Family Homes proposes 54 units across 21 scattered infill sites in the city of Rochester's Beechwood neighborhood. The type 1 action is Medford Gardens, which proposes new construction of 67 units not connected to public sewer, which is why this is a type 1 action. And this is on Horse Block Road in the town of Brookhaven. All 3 projects have no unmitigated, moderate to large environmental impacts. Unless there are questions, at this time I recommend the board approve these determinations. Thank you.
Thank you. Heather, have there been any comments or any objections by community members or other local electeds?
We have not gotten any objections here at HCR. 2 of the projects had local seeker processes also, and they have completed their processes without any complications, as far as I know.
Great, thank you. Okay, good.
Now before the HTFC board is a resolution transmitted in connection with this item. Assuming the motion and second previously recorded, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Motion is carried and the resolution adopted.
Thank you. Okay, the next 2 items are HTFC information items. Item 18, Climate Friendly Homes Fund Program Update. And Samantha Pierce, Vice President and Director of Sustainability, will present this item and the next item.
Hello.
Hi.
Nice to meet you in person for the
Likewise.
first time. And hello, everyone, virtually. Wanted to give a quick, brief update just on the Climate Friendly Homes Fund and the Clean Energy Initiative. I'll start with the Climate Friendly Homes Fund. Farther away. Sorry, I might hear myself. The Climate Friendly Homes Fund was funded through the 2022 State of the State program that Governor Hochul announced, funding $250 million to provide electrification upgrades to small residential properties between 5 and 50 units. Oh yeah, I don't know if that'll help troubleshooting. Thanks.
That's not it, Dan.
It might be,
Someone else?
it might be the
Okay, let's try that. Can you guys still hear me?
another office.
Okay, great. So as part of the resolution that was approved previously by the board, we are only coming to the board for updates based on submitting informational items on the progress, but we're really excited that to date we've closed over 156 units with CPC, who is our program administrator for the Climate Friendly Homes Fund. And we have another 128 units that are prepared and signed off by the agency. So the program is moving along, and we have actually a total of over 100 units in 3 projects that are near completion under the program. So we're really excited that we'll have some hopefully ribbon cutting soon for that program. I'll pause there, see if there's any questions on Climate Friendly Homes Fund.
Yeah, I saw that some of the money is obviously shifting to pre-development, and my nonprofit I don't think is involved anymore in sort of the administration supporting CPC on this, but one of the challenges have been sort of the measures that were allowed under the program. Obviously, given the other federal resources that are going to start flowing through the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund, to accelerate the planning on more projects, does it make sense to do any alterations to this program and revisit sort of the program terms that would make it more flexible for pre-development? I know we've shifted some monies that, for example, have made it into some forgivable loans, things like that, that if they don't end up materializing into projects. So just curious if you have any recommendations or thoughts on program changes.
Yeah, so we're very much evaluating. The program has a goal, just for context for everyone, of completing 10,000 units by the end of the fiscal year 2027. So we have some work to do before then. And so we have been looking at how we can help expedite the pipeline.
Yeah.
Just for context, we have about 1,000 units that are ready to close. And so we have a really robust pipeline in the system. But we are looking at, and we do have flexibility based on the approval of this program to expand both the size of buildings that we work in, as well as allowing for additional grant-based and possible loan capital to come in on the deal to close some of those gaps that we've seen from the early stages. So we're evaluating that right now with CPC to determine, so we can, present in the future once we've finalized any of those updates.
And are you guys stacking those with weatherization funds?
Yes, so we are allowing for stacking with other grant-based programs. Currently, the program just does not allow stacking with other loan programs.
Fair enough. Yeah, I was aware of that. So, okay.
Good.
Okay, thanks, Amanda.
Thank you.
And then.
Yes, and then super briefly, just on our Clean Energy Initiative program, this is a partnership program where we are receiving, through an MOU with NYSERDA, $100 million of funding to pair with our tax credit, 9% and 4% deals, to provide gap funding for green and clean energy initiative scopes of work, such as reaching passive house levels and or electrification and other things that we deem suitable under our term sheet for the Clean Energy Initiative. This program has really taken off. We've funded over $51 million of projects to date. That's 64 projects and almost 6,000 units just in 2 years. So we're really proud of that. And we've started really working more in the existing building space as we've fully allocated all of our new construction funds. So moving forward, we'll just be funding existing buildings projects. And in the board memo that was submitted for your review, you can see a full list of both HTFC and HFA projects that we've awarded in the last quarter. So we're just really excited about the progress and the sort of market acceptance of the program.
Great.
It was cool. We were in Albany on Tuesday. The Housing Authority had done this rehab of buildings that everybody, when you go into Albany, drives by, and it's a geothermal system they put in. I mean, I just think 5 years ago, the housing authorities were not doing geothermal, so it's really great to see you're definitely helping push the envelope on all of our sites on technologies like that. So thanks for all that. It's great.
Of course. And we're really excited too. I'll just put in a little plug that there's new tax credit monies that's coming out that's going to help support geothermal even further. So we're hoping we'll see that on even more deals that we do in the future.
And just to note that the more that we do, the more we actually bring down the cost for doing it. And so, for example, the Pennsylvania Housing Finance Agency 10 to 15 years ago went to passive house standards, and it made it the cheapest place to do passive house in the country. So the more that we do this, the more we're actually going to change the soft costs and other things that go into a lot. So it's exciting.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah. Great. Thank you, Samantha.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Okay, the next 5 items, there will be no presentation, except I want to note that item 24, the MWBE update, will occur during the SONYMA meeting. Okay, we'll take up the agenda items for HFA and AHC and begin with the shared action items. Item 1 is the adoption of the meeting minutes listed in the agenda, which shall be deemed approved absent any corrections. And we'll turn to the next item. The next items will be under the HFA Finance and Program Committee and HFA Board action items. And the next agenda item is item 2, regarding 29 Flatbush Avenue in the city of New York, Kings County, and Mark Price, Director of Capital Markets, will present the item.
Mark just stepped out, so he'll join us in 2 seconds.
Okay.
I think Capital's going to go grab him.
We could vote on it without a presentation.
What's that?
Can we vote on it without a presentation? Oh, he was here.
Yeah, he's here.
Oh, okay, sorry. Hi.
Hi, Mark.
This is 29. Yeah. Okay. I thought this was consent. Oh. Okay. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, Mark.
We're here to talk about 29 Flatbush, correct? Okay. So 29 Flatbush was project that we originally financed back in 2010, and then it came back in 2014. In 2010, we financed $90 million with bonds. 2014, there were additional bonds that were issued, $9 million additional tax-exempt bonds and $41 million taxable bonds. The bonds are all currently in a variable rate mode, backed by an LOC with Helaba. Right now, there's about $120 million of bonds that are outstanding. The project was completed back in March of 2014. It was an 80-20 project with 66 of the 327 units at or below 50% of AMI. Of those 66, 10 are at or below 40% AMI. The market rate units are about 93% leased, and the affordable units are almost completely leased up. The refinancing is going to be a limited offering to Mizuho Bank. They'll be the purchaser of those bonds. A Mizuho-related entity will provide the letter of credit for the bonds. Currently, the project appraised with a loan-to-value of 63 to 68%, with 1.3 times coverage. The servicing fees to HFA will be a little bit more than $400,000 a year, and will receive about $450,000 in financing fees at closing. So with that, happy to take any questions.
Mark, are there going to be contributions toward the financing by the owner in excess of the reserves that are being held?
That I will have to go back to check on.
I'm just curious the way we are doing these, whether, because it seems to me there's an amount that's being held, and then it's possible that there could be an excess amount that's required to be contributed.
Right. I do know they were looking to do some additional amounts that they were going to do through lending away from us. So
I'd be curious to know that.
Proceeds of that. Sure. Absolutely.
I think they put it in I think I did this deal for the agency, like whatever, 10 years, 15 years, whatever the answer is. There was additional capital that came in at the time the original deal was done. So, right. But this is just sort of changing bond structures at this point, effectively.
That is correct. They had reached the tender date on the bonds. So it was time to redo a new structure, and this is the structure that they chose to go with.
Now before the HFA Finance and Program Committee and the HFA Board are resolutions transmitted in connection with this item. Assuming the motion and second previously recorded, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion is carried and the resolution is adopted.
Don't go anywhere, Mark.
Okay, item 3, this is related to 160 West 62nd Street in the city of New York County. Mark?
Yes. So this is simply an extension of their LOC expiration date, which is coming up soon. They want to extend it.
Like next week, right?
Next week, that's right. October 16th. They want to extend that to the end of January. During this extension period, they will be working on a refinancing that will take place sometime between now and January, but we will be back with the details of that at a later date. So for now, all that's being asked for here is to allow for the extension of the tender date, the LOC expiration date from October 16th, 2024 to January 31st, 2025.
Got it.
Is it anticipated that the refinancing will stay with the agency?
That currently is the hope, and if so, it will be very similar to a project that the members approved or refinancing that the members approved for Emerald Green, where it was in a private placement mode and will be remarketed into a public market.
Obviously, these are huge sources of income and revenue, these projects for the agency. So like whatever tools we have in the toolkit to sort of support keeping these things on part of our books is really important. So that's great.
Okay. Thanks, Mark. Well,
Now before the HFA Finance and Program Committee and the HFA Board are resolutions transmitted in connection with this item. Assuming the motion and second previously recorded, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
The motion is carried and the resolution is adopted.
Thank you very much.
okay.
Thanks, Mark.
Thanks, Mark. Okay, we'll turn to the HFA Board action items. Item 4 regarding the Quality Inn conversion, town of Ulster, Ulster County. And this is the same as items 9 and 10 that we tabled previously. And Russell Hubley, Vice President, Multifamily, will present the item. And I'll recuse myself from this and the next one. Okay, thank you. Russell?
Good morning, thanks everybody. Sure, so item 4, this is the Quality Inn hotel conversion. It's the conversion of a currently vacant 2-story Quality Inn hotel that's located in the town of Ulster, Ulster County, that's on Route 28, just north of the city of Kingston. The conversion idea is to convert the existing hotel into 82 permanent units of supportive housing, plus a supers unit. The units will be at or below 50% of the AMI, and the unit mix will include 26 studios, 28 one-bedrooms, 22 two-bedrooms, and 6 3-bedroom units to accommodate families and individuals. All residents will be receiving supportive services and rental assistance through an ESHI award that's administered by the New York State Office of Temporary and Disability Assistance, or OTDA. The project will be receiving subsidy financing from HFA. Sorry, I need to speak up. Under the Hotel and Commercial Conversions Program. Just a little background. In 2021, legislation was passed to create the Housing Our Neighbors with Dignity program. Empowers the state to finance the conversion of distressed hotels and commercial office properties for use as affordable permanent supportive housing to low-income households and formerly homeless individuals. In response to this legislation, the agency here created the Hotel and Commercial Conversions Program, or HONDA, subsidy program, and this will be the second project hotel conversion that we've financed under this program. We closed a project called Baisley Park, which used to be the JFK Hilton, last December with Riseboro, Slate, and our partners at HDC and HPD. So this will be the second one we're doing. The project is also receiving financing through HTFC. That's why the project is also listed as items 9 and 10 on the HTFC board agenda for additional subsidy funding through our CIF, Community Investment Fund, and through the New York State Home American Rescue Plan program grant. It's also receiving funding through our Clean Energy Initiative program. This is a good opportunity for us to dig into a building and actually do more than just rehab, but also, enhance for energy efficiency. So there's incentives here for geothermal, for heating, solar for electricity, building design that will be carbon neutral ready, meeting a level of at least 50% renewable energy generation, which will offset the annual energy usage. The project owner, developer, and manager, and their co-service provider is the Rural Ulster Preservation Company, which was formed in 1981, non-for-profit. They rebranded themselves in 2013 simply as RUPCO. RUPCO does a lot of business with the agency in various programs. They have a dearth of experience in the Hudson Valley. They've created over 500 affordable housing units. They manage and provide supportive services to over 600 units with over 1,000 residents. RUPCO will partner with CARE Inc., an Ulster County organization, to serve their supportive populations at the Quality Inn conversion. The project's rehab or hard costs are approximately $328,000 per unit. That includes residential, community, and facility space and the parking lot area. The design for the new residential piece will basically convert the hotel rooms to combine them where needed, reconfigure them. They'll all have kitchens and bathrooms. Obviously, converting a hotel to affordable permanent housing has some challenges. They'll be designed for increased lighting to meet our design requirements. The previous hotel restaurant in the building will be converted into a commissary kitchen. The lobby and conference areas will be converted into a daycare leased to the YMCA. The existing parking lot will be landscaped to create a community garden, outdoor fitness area, 2 playgrounds, a meditation garden, some on-site bike lanes, and multiple walking paths for the residents. Also, there's an existing enclosed swimming pool, as hotels often do have. They're using this as an opportunity to provide, with Department of Health approval, to provide therapeutic programs for residents and a limited schedule for outside classes. The pool will be fully staffed with certified lifeguards and during operational hours, and it'll be locked under surveillance and monitoring 24/7 when it's not in operation. Obviously, this adds some cost to the project. The operational and insurance costs are approximately $142,000 a year. Most of this will be covered through the supportive services budget, and then the balance through the project's own operating expenses. Lastly, RUPCO is working with the Ulster County Area Transit to establish a new bus stop along the existing bus route that runs adjacent to the site. So that'll help to, and they're going to be providing bus services in and out of the area to go to Kingston for various services and retail and things like that. So that's the quality and conversion, if there's any questions.
A couple questions. This, I mean, it's a great project. It's right off exit 19 off 87. The question is that I think the Ulster County, whatever, UCAT, the transit, the bus station's on the other side of the highway. Do you know if there's any plan to expand public transit to this? Because it is kind of right off the highway. It's a really busy spot. So walking and bike paths will be hard for anything there.
I know they're setting up a cross path as well as part of this plan to initiate the bus stop. I'm not sure the full design, but they're accommodating. The city is definitely trying to accommodate the need for the public transport. I'm not sure what they're doing in addition to that, but there'll be a new cross path and a new bus stop.
Was there any discussion with the YMCA about leasing the pool for like other public purposes that could be doing it as well?
They will be, yeah. There'll be some limited, yeah. They don't want to fully open it to the public, but they want to have the option there to have classes, to have programs.
Okay.
Yeah.
For revenue.
It helped to kind of build up some community support.
Great. Thanks, Russell.
Sure.
And just noting for the record that the chair has recused himself on this item and from items 9 and 10 on the HTFC agenda. And now before the HFA board and the HTFC board are resolutions transmitted in connection with this item. Oh, I should say though, however, we do need to allow for an exception to the recusal requirement. I note that both the HFA and the HTFC vote requirement is 6, and for today's meeting, we only have 6 members present. Under the Code of Conduct, there's a provision that permits the waiver of a recusal requirement in situations where extenuating circumstances warrant consultation regarding the appropriateness of an exception to full recusal. Specifically, this applies in cases where a member's vote is required to meet the affirmative vote, and a member is voting with the majority, and all other members are voting unanimously, and any member not present says they would so vote, or B, without reconstitution, the membership would be unable to meet the affirmative vote requirement. An action by corporation, HFA, is required before such time as the membership might change. And note that this vote satisfies all of its conditions, since without the chair's vote, the matter could not be voted on, as there would only be 5 votes, and 6 are required for quorum in voting. The chair's vote on this item is therefore accepted, and the recusal requirement paid. With that read for the record, now before the HFA board.
Please cannot hear you at all.
Maybe pop this one on.
Can you hear us now?
A little better. Thank you.
A little better? Okay. Now before the HFA board and the HTFC board are resolutions transmitted in connection with this item. Assuming the motion and second previously recorded, all in favor, please say aye.
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 The motion is carried and the resolution is adopted.
Thank you, Will. Okay, item 5, Russell, you believe will also present on Lamora Senior Apartments Project, City of Yonkers, Westchester County. Russell?
Sure, thank you. Lamora Senior Apartments is owned by the Municipal Housing Authority of the City of Yonkers, Macy. It originally closed on construction financing back in June of 2022. Construction is now 100% complete. However, this did not occur without some challenges, and as we prepare for the building for its permanent conversion, there are additional financial considerations, which is why I'm here today. Fortunately, in the case of this particular project, additional resources are not necessary by the agency. We are able to address issues here by raising our tax credit per unit basis cap waiver, basis cap, which is currently at $575,000 per unit, waiving that to an as up to limit of $775,000. What this will do will increase the amount of eligible basis that's in the project, because the rising hard costs allows investor tax equity to contribute an additional $3.5 million to the project. The agency's qualified action plan, or QAP, it limits the per unit eligible basis for low-income housing tax credits at $575,000 per unit. However, there are a limited number of projects that exceed this per unit eligible basis for a variety of reasons, including high construction costs, as I mentioned, labor costs due to the applicability of Davis-Bacon prevailing wage rates. High acquisition may also contribute to this. For these types of projects, capping the eligible basis, it winds up limiting the amount of eligible tax credit equity that can go into a project, which tends to increase the amount of subsidy in turn that we have to put into a project. So we've tried to mitigate this where we can on certain projects where we feel it makes a lot of sense to consider this waiver. We do this, we look into this on our Vital Brooklyn projects where there are a lot of high infrastructure and acquisition costs, projects that are not in a HUD-defined difficult development area or a qualified census tract. Projects that are in those areas get a 30% basis boost on their equity. So projects that are not in that area make good candidates for this waiver. Finally, senior housing projects that are subject to Davis-Bacon prevailing wage rates that are located in high-cost areas such as New York City, Westchester County, and Long Island are also up for consideration for this waiver. It's this last category that Lamora Senior Apartments falls into. It's subject to Davis-Bacon. It's located in Westchester and Yonkers. The project's construction costs at the outset were above typical for this range in Yonkers for several reasons. 60-unit project for seniors receiving project-based Section 8 triggered the prevailing wage requirements. That results in about a 30 to 35% increase in construction costs. The cost of materials, particularly for this design, which is a passive house design with a modular construction component where parts had to be assembled off-site, shipped and stored, were higher than previously anticipated. Also, in consideration of COVID supply chain issues at the time, delays caused by a foundation siting problem added extra cost to the construction timeline and budget. And generally speaking, a relatively small project of 60 units. HFA typically does unit projects that are a little higher, 100 plus units. Receiving tax credit, bond, and financing did not translate so easily to economies of scale on a smaller scale project. So all of these kind of factors contributed to sort of a higher cost than we typically see. All of these cost overruns, change orders, and mitigation resulted in about $4.8 million increase to the budget subsequent to the construction closing, which occurred in June 2022. Because of these hard costs and change orders, and unforeseen mitigation, there was also an underground storage tank that was not previously revealed in any phase 1 or 2 reports, so that had to be mitigated. This all translates to increased interest, soft costs, and fees that are related to the delays on the construction. However, we're at a place now where, like I said, construction is complete, and doing this waiver will allow us to generate the additional equity to close out the project. We're projected to convert, hopefully, by the end of the year. This will allow us to do so. Any questions?
Thank you, Russell.
Okay, and I note again, oh, sorry, is there a question? Yeah. I note again that the chair has recused himself from this matter, but also I note the exception to the recusal requirement that was previously read into the record. Now before the HFA board is a resolution transmitted in connection with this item. Assuming the motion and second previously recorded, all in favor, please say aye.
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 The motion is carried and the resolution adopted.
Okay, thank you, Russell.
Thank you.
Okay, let's see. Next on the agenda, Resolution 6, or Item 6, Resolution of the HFA members authorizing an AHOP project transfer from HTFC to HFA for 99 Church Street project, City of White Plains, Westchester County. And Thomas Abbott will present. Thomas Abbott, Director of Homeownership Development Initiatives, will present the item.
Hi everyone, good morning. As this is a transfer, it was previously approved by HTFC, I'll keep things pretty brief here, but happy to answer any additional questions you may have about this project. This project was initially approved by the HTFC board last December. It's $13.6 million in AHOP subsidies to support the creation of 68 condominium units in downtown White Plains. It's the adaptive reuse of an old Berkeley College office building where there'll be a full replacement of facade, full replacement of MEP, some selective demolition to sort of create some good unit layouts for the building. The developer here is WBP Development, does a lot of business with the agency, a real estate development firm located in Westchester County. And the units will be 44 one-bedrooms, 16 two-bedrooms, and 8 three-bedrooms. Walking distance to Metro North Railroad's White Plains Station, and our participating lender here is CPC. All the homes will be regulated at 80% of AMI with an average sales price of $286,000. And the borrowers will be working with Housing Action Council, a local nonprofit, to market the units. The only real notable changes since this was originally approved, one is that Chase will be purchasing a participation in CPC's loan, which is great, reducing some of the construction interest. And then additionally, just a note that we'll be back soon. The neighboring site, which was initially contemplated as a 9% LIHTC project, has sort of switched in strategy. So that'll be a 40-unit AHOP project, the former Berkeley College dorm, immediately adjacent to this one. So you'll see me soon on that.
That's great.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Now before the HFA board is a resolution transmitted in connection with this item. Assuming the motion and second previously recorded, all in favor, please say aye.
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 The motion is carried and the resolution adopted.
Item 7, resolution of the HFA members recommending and authorizing the issuance of additional subsidy funding for Silos City, City of Buffalo, Erie County. Patrick Love, Vice President, Chief of Staff of Finance and Development, will present this item.
Hey, good morning. How you doing?
There we go.
So I'll be presenting Silos City additional subsidy today. So to set the stage, this project's along the Buffalo River along the south side of the city. It's an adaptive reuse of 2 historic grain silos, 160 units of affordable housing, 6,500 square feet of commercial space. Project initially closed back in October of 2020. In 2021, the project experienced significant construction delays and deficiencies with their then general contractor, ARC Building Partners. Drywall was improperly installed and started to mold in the units. There were large change orders that were completed that weren't properly approved through our normal mechanisms. The construction quality across the board was generally poor. The general contractor was then replaced with a new general contractor, RPO Kill. At the time, those cost overruns and lack of quality construction caused some issues with the 50% test. So in 2023, we issued an additional $5 million of bonds. RPO Kill stepped into the project, and it was in rough shape because of the previous general contractor and continued to face construction delays. And the project had additional construction issues that were discovered throughout the course of that construction period. So additional asbestos abatement and lead abatement was required, additional work to satisfy remediation from the brownfield cleanup program, more patching and sealing of original exterior walls, additional corrections from the work previously from ARC Builders, stair modifications due to existing condition constraints, and additional sealing of walls that started to flake during the construction period. The additional scope has cost some additional money that was not anticipated, and the project has continued on and is almost complete. So the $4.9 million subsidy loan will go towards covering those hard costs, builder's risk insurance, architect fees, interest expenses, and additional inspections imposed by the LOC Bank. There's also been significant money by the tax credit investor who is the guarantor of the project and the sponsor to keep this project moving. They've pledged their paid developer fee into the project and will be taking out an equity bridge loan to pay down the short-term bonds on November 1st. So the subsidy loan here is seen as a way to kind of match those commitments that have already been made. The additional subsidy loan will be contributed to the project at project conversion as well to incentivize all parties to deliver the project successfully. Happy to take any questions.
So my recollection is that this project was part of a two-phase development. Is just given all the challenges, is that still
As you
contemplated?
might have noticed, we started referring to the project as Silo City, not Silo City Phase 1, because from where we sit as in the prior board materials, it was referred to as Silo City Phase 1. So from where we sit as of right now, I don't think there will be agency participation in the second phase. That's not to say that that second phase can happen as a market rate development.
Yeah. Okay, I'll recuse myself.
So note just for the record that the chair has recused himself, but also note the exception to the recusal requirement previously read into the record. Now before the HFA board is a resolution transmitted in connection with this item, assuming the motion and second previously recorded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion is carried and the resolution adopted.
Thanks, Patrick.
Thank you.
Okay, next on the HFA board, there are two consent items. Item 8, resolution of the HFA members authorizing extension of the existing lease for a 5-year term for offices at 535 Washington Avenue in Buffalo. And there's no presentation on this item.
Now before the HFA board is a resolution transmitted in connection with this item, assuming the motion and second previously recorded. All in favor, please say aye.
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 The motion is carried and the resolution is adopted.
And item 9, resolution of the HFA members approving the quarterly bond sale report for the quarter ending July 31, 2024. Also no presentation.
Now before the HFA board is a resolution transmitted in connection with this item, assuming the motion and second previously recorded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion is carried and the resolution adopted.
Okay, and the next 4 items are for information only, no presentation. They're shared items, and I'll just note again that item 13, the MWBE report, will be handled during the SONYMA meeting. And the final item on the agenda is a new shared information item, item 14, technology roadmap update, and Tom Miller, VP and CIO, will present the item. Tom?
Hi, Tom.
Good morning.
Morning.
Good morning. So just to give an update on the IT strategy, I thought I'd start a little bit with just sort of laying out the current structure and organizationally and support structure of HCR. As I think we all know, HCR is really a collection of agencies, DHCR, HTFC, HFA, SONYMA, AHC, et cetera. And from an IT support perspective, the state ITS group supports all of the technology needs for DHCR and HTFC. And HCR has its own IT function that supports the IT needs for HFA, SONYMA, and AHC. I spell that out just because it highlights some difficulties with that dual support. It ends up meaning that we have separate networks for the two portions of the organization, separate data centers, separate security infrastructure, separate end user services, et cetera. And that makes it difficult for our users who oftentimes, while they may be an employee of one agency, they work across all of the agencies, but because they're on different networks, they oftentimes need to access resources that are on the other network, which they're unable to because of the separation of networks. Again, I spell some of that out just because some of that plays into what our future strategy and roadmap is to try to reconcile some of those differences. And so from a strategy perspective, on the networking side, the goal is to work with ITS to really try to find a way to reconcile those differences. ITS is actually in the process of making some structural changes of their own, and we're taking that opportunity to try to figure out how we can make the IT infrastructure for all of HCR consistent. Obviously, there's some concerns in that. ITS has some concerns because obviously there's a portion of our organization that has its own IT. And there's also concerns on our end of some of the service levels. We generally feel that the service that we're able to provide to the HFA SONYMA portion of the organization oftentimes exceeds the services that we receive from ITS. And so while we want to try to merge those two, or at least the operations of those two organizations, one of the concerns and one of the things we want to make sure we do is do it in a way that doesn't bring about a degradation of service to HCR generally. On the security side, ITS and the relatively new New York State Cyber Command has invested an awful lot of time and effort and money into protecting the cyber infrastructure of New York State. And so bringing those two together would allow us to take advantage of their size and scale, which far exceeds what we're able to do on our own. End user services, again, we talked a little bit about that. On the application portfolio side, which is really where IT strategy generally focuses, our goal is really to lay out some enterprise platforms for the organization. Historically, because of the number of agencies and the number of program areas within the agencies, the sort of focus was to deliver program-specific technology solutions, which oftentimes ended up being siloed. There was no real sharing of information. And so our goal and our strategy going forward is to deploy enterprise-wide solutions that serve the needs of all the agencies and all the program areas within the agency. And so those really two major platforms in that regard. One is SAP, which was recently deployed and serves really to support all of the, what I'll call back office functions of the organization, finance, HR, treasury, those sorts of functions. And then we're in the process now of deploying Salesforce as an enterprise solution to support all of our, really, I'll call front of house and any externally facing functionality. So functionality that New York State residents can take advantage of to meet their housing needs. And then underlying both of those two platforms is we're also in the process of deploying what we call an enterprise-wide data warehouse. So bringing all of the data that is used throughout the agency together and harmonized so that we can support all of our strategic and operational reporting needs. So in a nutshell, that's really the strategy, is to kind of shift from siloed program-specific solutions to enterprise-wide solutions that meet the needs of the agency, certainly enhanced by any applications or any needs that those two large enterprise platforms don't support. But again, in a nutshell, that is the strategy. In terms of the roadmap itself, this strategy has been playing out for the last few years. So I'll just highlight a couple of the things that we've done and talk about a bit of the future roadmap. In 2001, we deployed ProLink to be really the project and asset management solution, managing the assets under our care. We have spent a significant amount of time strengthening our cybersecurity posture in 2021 and 2022. SAP, as I mentioned, was deployed in 2022 to serve the back office needs of all of the agency. As Dan mentioned earlier, we deployed Emphasis Elite to be our new Section 8 and rental assistance program solution. And then looking forward, we're currently in the process of building out a housing search solution to support New York State citizens looking for affordable housing. It's sort of the affordable housing version of a Zillow, let's say. We're working on a project to really re-platform some of our legacy mainframe applications. That's really ultimately probably more of an interim step, just to get us off of the legacy technology that's currently running them. Again, I mentioned the alignment of HCR IT and ITS is something that we're looking to do in 2025 as the ITS realignment really kind of shakes out. On the SONYMA side, we're starting to kick off a project to upgrade the SONYMA emphasis solution to support our SONYMA loan origination. And then there's a front end piece of that, which we call SONYMA Express, which is really the public facing portion, which we look to do a modernization of in 2026. Again, on the Salesforce side, a number of the program areas do some form of grant management. And so Salesforce has pretty robust grant management functionality as part of their public solutions, public sector solutions platform. So 2025, 2026 to deploy an enterprise-wide grant management solution. And then again, from a Salesforce perspective, deploying a large case management module to replace our legacy rent regulation functionality that currently serves ORA and potentially ultimately serves TPU.
Thank you, Tom.
Yeah, just real quick. I mean, obviously, like the asset management sort of software, like speaking to the SCP software so that it can like auto-generate finance and do stuff more in real time. And how is the integration across those sort of various platforms going? Because obviously, like, you know, if you have vacancy, Dan's trying to find where places to find Section 8 vouchers. This system says that there's vacancies over here. How are we connecting the dots across systems using technology to support an overall better functioning like agency?
Yeah, we're not there yet. ProLink, which I mentioned as the asset management platform, is integrated to SAP today. But we're really just at the beginning of deploying Salesforce as an enterprise platform. And so the plan is certainly to make sure that those pieces integrate. So if we start with a project and it originates in ProLink, when that project turns into a building, the idea would be that that building is then propagated into Salesforce and then Salesforce to SAP for as needed to do exactly what you described, right? To make sure that that data is available in the various areas that it's needed, and also to eliminate the manual errors that occur when you need to try to keep multiple systems in place. That's really a big reason for why we think it's important to deploy enterprise-wide platforms, right? Because to integrate two platforms that are really made to be integrated is a lot easier than trying to integrate, you know, dozens of siloed program-specific applications.
That's great. I mean, anything that makes it better for people that work here and people that use the agency is important. So, no, it's good. I mean, it's just, that's why I just want to make sure it's like, we are like focusing on like, we're investing like huge amount in sort of the back office stuff with the SAP, but then it's also like, there's these other functions that it has to connect to. So like making sure that we continue to invest more as we need to make that stuff better at the end of the day.
I mean, I think we've come a long way, but we have a long way to go. So we
have a long way to go. Salesforce, once we get Salesforce really kind of stood up as a platform for us, I think we'll start to see a lot of advantages as to where we can build out more functionality. The capability to have externally facing functionality to make it easier for the public to interact with us is huge.
No, and there's tons. I mean, listen, there's underwriting integrations into Salesforce. There's anything you want integrations into Salesforce as well. And that's a lot of people build on top of it, so it's great. Yeah.
Awesome.
Thank you, Tim.
Thank you, Tom.
Okay, so with that, there's no unfinished business on the agenda. We'll now take the steps to adjourn the meeting and note that the next meeting is scheduled for Tuesday, November 19th, 2024.
Assuming the motion and second previously entered, all in favor of adjourning, please say aye.
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 The motion is carried and the meetings of HFA, AHC, and HTFC are adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, James.
Who canceled? Who?
Press that. Press that.
Taking a break, and you want to jump right in?
Should take like.
Looks like it's under your face. You've met before, I'm sure, right? How you doing? Happy day to see you.
We're just going to take a 2-minute break before the start.
Kids are good.
How you doing? I'm good. How are you? Morning.
Morning. How are you?
Good. I like the purple and white. It's very
Yeah, I thought it was
festive.
blue.
Oh.
No, I really
did. This is called a red-green deficiency, and so I thought it was cool. It was pointed out to kids, but it goes. Thank goodness, it does match.
It does match, and purple is the SONYMA color. It's our like agency color, so it feels very on brand.
It's very royal. It's very royal. There we go. Okay, great.
I know. Kelly and I had our Westchester. Yeah, that's fine.
You say your No, sit down. If you don't mind. Please. Nice to meet you as well. I remember, as a kid, going, as I told you, I lived in Japan until I was 7. Oh, really? And my father worked for the U.S. government. It was like in the 50s. Major American presidents at the time. So we lived downtown. A lot of tension there, too. Not really. No, really? No. The Japanese are very, I'm going to settle in. 1,000-year history. Lit. Cultural screen. But I lived in town, so I learned to speak Japanese. Do you still speak Japanese? Any language. Who's Barbara? But I remember when we came back to the States, I was 7, and I really didn't know much about the U.S. until I was 4. So I really only read all the Jet magazine. And so we drove from New York down to Virginia to visit my father's friends and my parents' friends. And did you grow up in New Rochelle? No, Teaneck, New Jersey from there. I was in New Rochelle for like 6 months and then Teaneck, New Jersey. And this is straight out of slavery. Right. That's straight out of slavery. Nobody talks about it. Straight out of slavery. The enslaved they didn't have the population.
Osborne is before Tamika. I mean, everything before is just a few consent items.
Okay.
So we'll just.
I just want to make sure they were first.
In the marshes, we go ahead and get started. Yeah.
I need to get this stuff done. I don't know what's
Until we
And then Jefferson.
Huh?
And then Jefferson.
Oh, Jefferson. Well, Jefferson, of course, is he's the father of his own enslaved population. Yeah. They said you would come to Monticello and you see all these redheaded kids.
Good morning. Doing good. How you doing?
So that's an interesting time.
I like that time.
Interesting. It's a little psychedelic. It brings back memories. Flashback, please.
So just take a mark.
Good morning. How's it going? Good morning.
Too. Are you all ready to get started?
Yeah. Here all day. Yeah. I don't schedule anything. I mean, I have meetings this afternoon, but I generally. Also, we never know what time this is going to end, so lunch becomes it. Yeah, definitely. I'll be here.
Your kid?
I think we're gonna.
Okay, perfect.
We're gonna get started.
But that was just.
Yes, I'm clear up till 2, so that's fine.
Okay, we're gonna get started.
Should we just sound check B and Jesse?
Yeah.
Jesse, you're good? Yeah, okay.
Here.
Cool, thanks. Great. B, you can still hear us?
In any event,
Did you all?
that will not be discussed.
No, there's no.
I know.
I love one. Anyway.
No, not definitely not going to do that. Long term.
Were any of you counting on a shot of caffeine that you didn't get, and would you like a coffee from the other side of the floor?
No, but if you have vodka, I would.
Only afternoon, not
The
not
mics are
before.
on, all right?
All right.
Would anyone else like you on salt?
I would take, yeah, any kind of coffee. Coffee would be great.
No shame in the game.
Are you want to start with?
Oh, I forget that I have to do this. Yes. I'm going to turn things over to Will. Good morning. Happy October 10th, everybody. Can you please open up our SONYMA meeting today?
Thank you. Sure. To begin, we note the following. Jesse Olzak, representing the Director of the Budget, is participating in the meeting via video conference from the Division of the Budget's Conference Center at the Capitol Building, room 131 in Albany. And B. Gonzalez is participating in the meeting via video conference from HCR's office in Syracuse at 620 West Erie Boulevard, Suite 312. In accordance with the open meetings law, notice of our locations has been made public and the public has the right to attend and observe the proceedings from these locations. Now I will ask for motions and seconds to call to order, consider each agenda item, and later adjourn the meeting of the State of New York Mortgage Agency. Is there a motion?
So move. Second.
A second. Thank you. I will now ask for individual votes from each member of the Sunny Mae Board. Vice Chair Wisniewski.
Aye.
Mr. Olzak.
Aye.
Mr. Freeman.
Aye.
Professor Ford.
Aye.
Ms. Gonzalez.
Aye.
And Mr. Capel.
Aye.
We will use these votes as items are voted on throughout today's meeting unless a board member decides to vote differently or needs to recuse themselves. I will now ask for motions and seconds to call to order, consider each agenda item, and later adjourn the meeting of the Sunny Mae Finance Program Committee. That's you.
Motion. Jesse?
Second.
For the individual votes of each committee member, we will accept the previous votes of committee members Vice Chair Wisniewski and Mr. Olzak. I will now ask for motions and seconds to call to order, consider each agenda item, and later adjourn the meeting of the Sunny Mae Mortgage Insurance Committee.
Motion. Second.
Second. For the individual votes of each committee member, we will accept the previous votes of committee members Vice Chair Wisniewski, Mr. Olzak, and Mr. Capel. The meetings of the Sunny Mae Board, Sunny Mae Finance and Program Committee, and Sunny Mae Mortgage Insurance Committee are officially open.
Thank you, Will. We're now going to take up the agenda and begin with the shared action item. Item number 1 is the adoption of the minutes listed in the agenda, which shall be deemed approved absent corrections, but I would note that we got some corrections from Member Freeman, and those will be adjusted if they weren't, they'll be modified and reflected. Next on the agenda is the Sunny Mae Board consent item. There's going to be no presentation unless it is requested. This is item number 2, which is a resolution of the Sunny Mae Board approving the quarterly bond sale report for the quarter ending July 31, 2024.
Now before the Sunny Mae Board is a resolution that was transmitted in connection with this item. Assuming the motion and second previously recorded, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
The motion is carried and the resolution adopted.
Great. Next on the agenda are Sunny Mae Board information items. There's no presentation on these unless requested, but please request if you would like it. Item number 3 is a current agency procurements and contracts that are in the lobbying restricted period. Item number 4 is a review of the quarterly report on the financial status of existing hedges for the quarter ending July 31, 2024. And item number 5 is the MIF activity report for September 2024. Next on the agenda is item number 6, and today we have an update on the work of the Osborne Association in connection with the prior board agenda item, Marcus Garvey Extension, Building C and E. And I'm happy to introduce that we are going to be joined by representatives of the Osborne Association who are here. We have Board Chair Matthew Wambua, President and CEO Jonathan Monsalve, and Executive Vice President and Chief Housing Officer Wendell Walters. And please come up to the table. Obviously, you guys can reintroduce yourself to board members since they won't know which of you is which necessarily. So,
good afternoon. How are you? Good morning. Yes. Good morning. I'm Matthew Wambua. I am Chair of the Osborne Association, and I'll let my colleagues introduce themselves.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for having us. I'm John Monsalve, President and CEO of the Osborne Association.
Good morning. Sorry. Good morning. Wendell Walters, Executive Vice President and Chief Housing Officer of the Osborne Association.
Morning. Apologies, your names?
Professor Wallace Ford.
Excellent.
James Freeman.
James Freeman. Pleasure.
Dave Capel.
Hey, Dave.
Nice to meet you.
and then you have by video Jesse Olzak is the person who's on the screen right now, and then in a box down on the bottom is B. Gonzalez, who's up in Syracuse. Hi, B.
Excellent. All right. Well, thank you very much, Vice Chair and Commissioner Wisniewski, and Board Chair Mr. Weiss. It's a pleasure to be here. We truly appreciate you guys having us. By way of background, we are Osborne Association, and we provide a set of services throughout the jails and the prisons of New York State for both folks that are incarcerated as well as their families. And one of the primary things that we do into is the provision of supportive housing for reentry citizens. So we have, with the support of the state and thankfully with the support of this board and HCR, been able to do some work that we're very proud of and that we're excited to be able to share with you today. And we appreciate the invitation to be here, and we're looking forward to having this conversation.
Great. I believe we had shared a brief PowerPoint deck. I don't know if you can pull that up. It's fantastic. Thank you. We've already introduced ourselves. I think you can go to the next slide. But what I'm going to do is just give you a very quick overview of the Osborne Association, and we'll jump in to talk about some of our housing work. But we serve individuals, families, and communities who've been affected by the criminal legal system. Our aim through our programs is to offer opportunities for people to heal from harm, repair that harm, restore their lives, and thrive. And we're really aiming to change the systems that are rooted in racism, retribution, and fight for policies and practices that promote true public safety and liberation. Just a little bit of background here. We've got 7 offices and we provide services across the state in prisons and jails, but our impact is really far reaching. Last year, we provided over 14,000 unique individuals were engaged in programming, did over 30,000 individual sessions and group sessions, and we know that about 84% of our participants have completed successful programming in the last year.
Can we ask questions as you go along, or
Sure.
What constitutes successful completion?
It depends on the program. It's a really good question.
An example.
Yeah. So for someone in the Fulton Community Reentry Center at the moment, it would be, securing stable housing and leaving a transitional shelter. For someone in a workforce development program, it could be securing employment for the first time, be it part-time or full-time. So it certainly depends on the program. We've got family reunification programs and supportive parenting programs for someone who's increased their emotional and financial engagement with their child. We would call that a success. So it's definitely not linear and varies by program. And some of them are mandated by our funders, be it the state or the city. So, if you've got a specific question on a program, I'm happy to talk about that one, but it varies.
Very helpful. Thank you.
Yeah. We can go to the next slide. And so just our expertise, the Osborne Association has been doing this type of work for over 90 years. We have a presence in over 40 prisons here in New York State. 5,000 individuals have received services inside of those prisons in the last fiscal year. And we also provide services for those that are justice involved in the community. And so I think the best way to think about us is, an ability to provide a service inside of a prison facility, but also see and meet you in the community when you come home, and provide that kind of holistic approach. And so we can start while you're on the inside, help you prepare for reentry, help you, provide some of those family supports, and then once you're in the community, continue that process. We find that is a big piece of our engagement. Next slide, please. But we're here to talk today specifically about our housing work. And so we're going to jump into that, and I'm going to share a little bit of the next few slides with Wendell. But this next slide here really gives you an overview of our current housing portfolio. We've got a total of 7 projects, 301 units and 140 beds. 2 of those are complete right now, and we've got about 113 residents. There's Marcus Garvey 1, which I think you're all familiar with. There's also the Fulton Community Reentry Center, which opened back in April. We are well on our way to filling that, but that is a transitional men's shelter with 140 beds. We've got about 70 folks that live there at the moment. 2 are in construction, the Rise and Marcus Garvey 2, which we'll get into in a few minutes. And we have an ownership interest in 3 of the projects, Fulton, Marcus Garvey 2, and Bayview. Bayview is one of our more exciting ones. We've been working with the state on this to redevelop the former Bayview Correctional Facility over in Chelsea. And 3 are in pre-development, Alafia, Bayview, and Newburgh. I'm going to kick it to Wendell, who's going to talk a little bit about the Marcus Garvey work.
I have a quick question, if I may. Do you serve men and women?
We do, yeah. It's a mixed population in Marcus Garvey. Fulton specifically is designed for males over the age of 50, so it varies by site.
Thank you.
And Jonathan, you mentioned one of the projects, you referred to it as a shelter. What are the occupancy opportunities or limitations resulting from that? Is it short term, or are they longer leases, or just explain what that?
Yeah, at Fulton, the goal is to have someone transition out in the first year. We've had, I think, over the last few weeks, about 4 or 5 folks that have secured their own housing, and we haven't filled the building yet. So everything is geared towards getting them to more stable housing. But really, the model there is to welcome folks who are being released from prison, do not have a place to go, are from the Bronx, and so providing those supportive services, be it employment, access to healthcare, but at the same time working on the kind of more permanent housing.
So the services that you offer also help to transition from that shelter to something more permanent.
That's exactly right. And that's part of the model for us, is if we're able to open up that bed, we can provide additional supports to folks that are being released from prison.
Just so we're clear, where is this one located, please?
Marcus Garvey 1 is located in East New York, but Fulton that we're talking about is located in the Bronx.
Bronx.
Yeah.
In the Claremont
Just
section.
as a resident of the Bronx, I work in Brooklyn, but as a resident of the Bronx, just approximately where in the Bronx?
Claremont Park, and Fulton Avenue, 171st Street, across the street from the park. It's a beautiful site, actually.
Thank you.
That was also a former correctional facility once upon a time.
Okay. Thank you.
That's me, right? So thank you again. Good morning, everybody. I'm the Chief Housing Officer, as I said, at Osborne, and we wanted to have the first slide be the Marcus Garvey 1. That's one that's been fully operational for the past 2 years. We have 52 units there, all occupied. We can have a robust waiting list all the time. The project is part of a larger affordable housing project with L&M Development. And it's a community of people that has a really supportive environment, and it's been working fairly well. Our director there is on site most times and oversees all of the property management aspects of the project, but also the programming, which is robust. And again, it's a permanent supportive housing environment, not transitional like the project we previously discussed. Next slide, please.
You go to the next slide, whoever's, there we go.
Thank you. Here's a lovely picture of previous one. Thanks, thanks, Kat. Here's a lovely picture of some of the residents there at Marcus Garvey. Like I said, it's a community of people who really come together as a set of folks who have a common background or previously incarcerated. In particular, these folks are older, which is a category that Osborne focuses on in their reentry housing work. We do ask the candidates for our housing be of a certain age and a certain amount of incarceration. This particular group of people have distinct challenges when they come home, as opposed to folks who've been away for 1, 2, 3 years. Folks who've been away for 7, 10 plus years really come home with a lot of, as I said, challenges, particularly around employment, obviously housing, benefits, disconnection to community and family. So this kind of environment for them is really enriching and helps them reintegrate back into society.
Just a quick question.
Sure,
in teaching one of my criminal justice classes, we actually had a speaker come in who's with an organization, obviously not yours, but that deals with people who've served 20, 30 plus years and now coming out in their 60s and 70s and so on. Have you had any affiliate? They're based in Brooklyn. Have you run across them or other organizations like that as you
that work with folks who are coming home and been waiting for a long time?
Yes.
There's a whole, John can speak to this as well. There's a whole community of people who do this work. The Fortune Society is the comparable group to ours. They do fantastic work. They do reentry housing as well. I think they had the first.
I understand.
Yeah.
Pardon me for interrupting, but time is not our friend. But is there collaboration between these various groups that have at least similar goals and objectives?
Absolutely. One that comes to mind is the Independent Commission to Close Rikers. We are often working with them to assess the older population population on Rikers Island, their needs, their bail status, to see if we can get them off of the island and have them be in community supervision versus being in a space that we know is not conducive to some of their needs. Another one that comes to mind is the parole prep project. A lot of folks that are released on parole may meet this criteria that we're talking about: older adults who have faced long sentences of incarceration, and so collaborating with them. The goal that we have is to kind of work within the ecosystem to provide as many supports as we can. If you don't fit with our programming, if you can't find a spot on the wait list for us, or it's taking too long, how do we get you to somebody else that's got the opportunity to provide the services right now?
Great, thank you. Yep. As part of the slide, we want to include just a bullet point about the kind of security and day-to-day life of folks there, and we do provide 24-hour security in all of our projects. And to date, we haven't really had any major incidents at all. As I said, folks come together as a community and really have more of a focus on just reintegrating successfully back into society, getting benefits, as I said, income at some level, counseling, healthcare, etc. So we've been lucky and done pretty well in having a project that has really no incidents happening whatsoever. Next slide, please. Here's a graph that we've shared on many occasions. Just shows the aging population in the United States and both federal and state prisons. There's a rapidly growing percentage of those who are imprisoned in jail are just older. And it really comes from a generation past where we had really harsh sentencing laws in the country and in New York State. So folks who were young adults at the time of their incarceration have been spending a long time inside, and as reduction in overall population has gone down, the average age of the folks who are inside has gone up significantly, and as projected in 2030, 1/3 of all incarcerated people will be older adults, representing more than a 400% increase, 4,400% increase over the next 50 years. Next slide, please. We've been doing this work for a long time. This graphic to the right is a white paper that Osborne published a number of years ago. I think it was 2018 was when it was last updated. Just talks to the high costs of low risk. When you're inside for a long time, when you come home, the rate of recidivism is very, very low. It's below 5%. In some cases, even some studies show even 2%. And it costs a lot of money to incarcerate somebody who's advancing in age, certainly healthcare being the most primary cost driver. In New York State, it's, you can see right there, we have over 7,000 people who are 50 years of age and older, and 4,600 who are 50 and 59 years old, and 2,600 for those who are even over 60 years old. Again, that rate has, percentage of those who are inside has increased fourfold over the last 10 years. Of course, we have 8,000 people in New York State who are serving life sentences, which is quite a bit, and of course, it's heavily Black and Latino population suffering from that. And more New Yorkers serve life sentences who are from Brooklyn than anywhere else. Brooklyn, of course, is the most populous borough, and for those who come back to New York City, Brooklyn is well represented in unfortunately, in the life sentences for folks who are inside. And the average age of death inside is 58 years old. It's quite young. The environment, of course, acute violence and trauma, and the lack of adequate health care adds to that very, very low average death rate. Is there a next slide? Yep. Yeah, that was just a brief overview of our stuff. Let's race to the housing stuff and open up the questions at this point.
You said your recidivism rate is only 5%?
The recidivism rate for folks who are older, who are 55 years of age and older, there's a various amount of studies on this, but it's consistently been 5% and below.
What about teenage groups and those in their 20s and 30s?
As you can well imagine, folks who are
younger and kind of recycle in and out of jail and prison have a higher recidivism rate, which could be, I've seen studies that go as high as 60%, 40 to 60% rates. They tend to cycle in and out of prison and jails more rapidly than the folks who are older and been away for a long time. Those folks just want to come back to a stable environment, come back to income at some level, job, healthcare, counseling, reconnection to community. They have other things to do other than get back into the kind of trouble that they got into when they were young adults.
That's one of the reasons that I wanted to have you come in, because one of these projects has 75 individuals that's going back into one home in one particular area. So if your recidivism rate is 60%.
Can you be specific? What project are you talking about?
I believe it was
Marcus
this
Garvey
project,
too.
Marcus Garvey.
I think I came before the board and for mortgage insurance, for HFA for financing and SONYMA
Right.
for mortgage insurance. And so this conversation came up in that.
Thank you. I apologize for interrupting. Please continue.
So if 75 individuals are going back into the same community and there's been no community impact, 60% of those 75 individuals are going to go back to prison because there's no change in the environment there. So how are you addressing the recidivism rate, that it being so high? And what's the reason for the recidivism rate that you're seeing?
You're talking about the Marcus Garvey 2 project, I think you're referring to. Overall, well, again, we focus on the previously incarcerated older adult, not so much the younger adult who has been released from jail and or prison. We have a specific focus. As that white paper I mentioned earlier talks specifically about those folks who have those kind of unique challenges, that have the disconnection from community, the disconnection from family, and really want to focus on getting their lives together and reintegrating back into society with the basic functions of daily life.
We offer community programs that provide supportive services to young adults. At the moment, we've got a gun diversion program in the Bronx. We've got workforce development programs for them. But at the moment, we're not offering housing services to that population. Our focus is on the older adults. And part of it is because we found that there's a gap in those services. And so it's why we're focusing on them in the Bronx. It's why we're focusing on them at Marcus Garvey 1 and 2. The goal for us is to get them housing because we understand that that is a population that's having trouble accessing housing, but also just has a different set of needs. And so we knew that there were other folks in our ecosystem that are providing the housing services to young adults. We didn't want to duplicate those efforts, but we certainly didn't see that happening for older adults.
So to the extent that we have 75 folks that you were talking about, 60 of those are not going back to prison. The demographic we're talking about is not that demographic. And then secondarily, I think we might assert, albeit not a situation for Marcus Garvey, that if folks are appropriately supported, you don't have 60 people out of 75 going back to prison. That said, it's not Marcus Garvey.
When you're building out a model, and you're looking at that model across the board, where the system is exactly the same, you have to, the judicial system or the jail system. So if you have that model in place and the individuals are going to prison for the same reasons, you're going to run about the same recidivism rate. The demographic will change only based on age.
I'm sorry. Are we talking about Marcus Garvey? Are we talking about the work that we're doing with respect to the reentry housing that we're providing? Or are we talking about systemic issues with respect to the criminal justice system?
All three.
All right. So we probably agree with you on all of the systemic critiques that you're talking about. And for that reason, that's why we're in this business, to try and counter so much of that systemic impact and critique that you're talking about. We thought we were here to talk about Marcus Garvey, the work that we're doing. That doesn't have anything to do with what you're talking about.
Absolutely does. But how different is your program? Are you familiar with Seafield?
Seafield?
Yep, Seafield. Introductory programs at all?
I am not.
SAFE?
I've heard of SAFE, yeah, not Seafield.
Okay. What's your relationship with DSS and Oasis?
We have a good relationship with DSS. They are our funder for the Fulton Community Reentry Center, so we work directly with them there. And Oasis, we used to run a drug treatment outpatient clinic in the Bronx for folks that were facing alternative to incarceration services. We recently shut that clinic down, but we also provide supportive and preventative services inside of New York State prisons.
Do you work with sex offenders?
At the time, we are not providing housing to any sex offenders at any of our sites. We do get referrals through our court mitigation and decarceration work to provide supportive services inside of courtrooms, but we are not providing housing services to folks that have sex offenses.
Are you running into any problems with the 4-person rule, where you can't have more than 4 individuals not living as a common family in a particular unit?
No, I mean, it's certainly not happening at Fulton or at Marcus Garvey. As I mentioned, we've got our staff are on site. We've got a full array of services that we offer daily. We also do room checks at the different sites that we've got. So that hasn't been a challenge that we've encountered at all.
No time restrictions or anything as far as them having to be in at a certain time, out at a certain time?
No, at Fulton, we've got a pretty set system. We've got a security team. There's a sign in and sign out function. There are metal detectors that folks need to go through. There are night counts and census counts that we do. If you are not getting in when you need to get in, you are at risk of losing that bed and losing the services that we're providing. So that's made very clear on the front end to all of the participants that we're offering services. One thing that I think might be helpful, if you'd like to see our Marcus Garvey work in action or the Fulton Community Reentry Center, we're happy to host you for a visit to give you kind of an in-person feel of what this all looks like on the ground.
I'd be interested in that.
Same here.
Same here.
Absolutely.
What's the economic impact would be on the Marcus Garvey site, on the community itself?
Well, I don't have any measurable impact information.
What are you talking about? Are you talking about the development for which we have invested in conjunction with L&M in millions and millions of dollars of capital improvement to fund building, create jobs? What are you asking?
Where if you putting that number of individuals in one particular area, the impact itself to the community in doing the job training, are they increasing the economic development in the area by having the individuals in your homes working in jobs in those areas? Are they receiving training? Are they being hired by individuals in the community itself? In the recidivism?
Questions about whether folks are actually finding jobs.
The economic impact of individuals finding jobs and the economic impact on the community itself.
Do you want to know if they're finding jobs, or do you want us to come up with some kind of an econometrics model that allows us to be able to say this is the impact of their taxation, their purchasing, the value of their work?
The community itself and how it's being impacted by you guys being there. Okay, let me give you an example. Got it? Okay. We worked in Suffolk County through the DA's office and the probation office. We got 50% of the individuals who were incarcerated out of jail. By getting them out of jail, one of the things that we did was we set up housing for them. If they had a drug addiction, we had them go to Seafield. If they had sober addictions, we work with Oasis, who has spent millions of dollars fighting against us, trying to develop a quote-unquote sober home. So there's no definition in the state of New York on what a sober home is. It's not there, right? So in it not being there, we had to find ways of being able to put individuals back into a community, but show how they would impact that community. So now we went out to businesses. Look, we have individuals who are coming out. We got 25 kids. Could you provide these kids with jobs and training once they come out so that they don't have a high recidivism rate? So of the 50% of the kids that we got out, let's say 176 individuals from one group, only one had a problem out of 176 kids. Why? Because we supported them all the way through. And we provided them with a job. And we provide them with economic training and job training and also education by getting them back into school, by finding them grants and other things. So if you're taking 75 individuals and you're putting them back into a community, what's the community impact? Are you making it to where the community is better economically by building out the economic structure, or are you just dropping bodies in the community?
So we're not doing the latter, we're doing the former. I like what you're talking about. I don't know that we necessarily have all the metrics of which we're speaking in the way that you just articulated them. Would love to talk to you more about your experience and the way you guys have done it. It sounds like you've got a great set of insights with respect to being able to achieve metrics that we'd love to be able to pursue ourselves.
We also take a pretty holistic view to an individual. We're working with older adults, some who have mobility issues, employment, and healthcare issues. Employment might not be the first thing that they need when we see them because they're not ready to work. I think you mentioned substance use issues. It's hard to hold down a job if you've got a substance use concern or a housing concern. We've got to address that before you can not only get a job, but keep that job. I think what you'll find at places like Marcus Garvey and Fulton is that we've got full-time activity and wraparound services to meet every individual where they're at in order for them to succeed. Employment is one piece of that, but there's also healthcare, there's also substance use, there's also connection to families. At Marcus Garvey, one of the things that I like the most is, you walk in and you're kind of walking into this community center, group center area where you've got a calendar of events, and residents are required to be at those events daily. And then there's the one-on-one kind of case management and support that we're able to do. We're able to leverage our internal, we've got an employment janitorial program to get folks transitional employment. If you've been incarcerated for 20 years, there is no magic switch that we can flip and just get you ready for the world of work. We've got to slowly build into that. And so you can potentially take advantage of transitional work opportunities as we work to get you into more stable employment. The work that we do is not kind of a one size fits all. It's let's meet you where you're at. Understand that success is not linear while taking care of a big piece, your housing. But we're certainly not bringing folks into the community that aren't ready to do this. There's an extensive vetting and intake process for us as well. This is how we do things at Fulton. This is how we do things at Marcus Garvey. If that's not what you want to do, then maybe this isn't the place for you. And those are tough conversations to have, but you've got to be able to engage with us individually if you want to succeed in our programs.
The idea is to get them in a stable environment. Housing, in my opinion, breeds stability. And you have folks who are coming home from state prison, who've been away for a long time, who more likely than not are going to end up in the shelter system. That's instability. That's the kind of environment that doesn't have the kind of support that we provide, essentially, in our reentry housing work. From the transitional stuff where you just kind of come right out and looking to transition to the next stage in life, to the permanent supportive environment for folks who, in many cases, have limited opportunities to find employment because they are advancing in age. They do have, have been dealing with inadequate health care for many, many, many years and subject to, that kind of environment. So keeping them, not exclusively, but keeping them in that supportive environment where they have all the help and intensive case management to navigate the system to continue that kind of support is important for them, and it's been working pretty well.
That's why I asked about the CFIL program, because one thing that we found in utilizing them through the state with the CFIL program is they were initially just trying to push them into a job. If you have a job, you'll be successful, you'll be able to make money, and the recidivism rate increased. By waiting 6 months, it decreased it by half. By waiting till 9 months, you had maybe a 2-3% recidivism rate just by the first 9 months, working to make sure that they were working on their addictions and mental health issues that they were having and physical issues that they were having. So that's why I was asking you, are you familiar with that? So this way you're not having to reinvent the wheel, because there's other people who have been doing it for years already. And then the association with OASIS, because they're now willing to come to the table to discuss working better to support organizations like yourself. So that's why I asked you, had you reach out to them?
I'm not familiar with them. I'd love to hear more about what
Yeah,
they
with
do.
Seafield, I'm not. With Oasis, we partner with a lot of programs, and again, we've run Oasis-led programs for a long time.
Now, let me just say, because I know, again, time is not our friend, but I think our colleagues' questions are extremely important. I think you hear that here on the board that there's more than a passing experience with this particular type of activity that you're involved with, which should be commended, certainly. And so perhaps we can, I'll leave that to the chair, as we can find a time that we can have a further discussion, inquiry, even a visit, what have you, something like that.
I think what I'd like to suggest, Professor, Mr. Freeman,
Capel.
Mr. Capel.
Dave. Dave.
Or Bob. One, we're grateful to have this conversation. Two, I think on my part, probably unfairly so, I made a lot of assumptions about what this conversation was about. It's clear that there are shared interests here. There's a wealth of expertise on your side with respect to wanting to ensure the success of our people coming out of incarceration, trying to ensure that they can be accorded the opportunities to succeed. My fear was we were coming here to essentially talk to folks that essentially were, in a thinly veiled way of saying why these people in our housing.
Not at all.
It's clearly the wrong assumption. Apologize for making that assumption. And I'm grateful for your interest. I'm grateful for your insights. And I would like to set up some extra time where we can have some conversation, benefit from a cross-pollination of experiences and perspectives. And we appreciate it.
Maybe it can be outside of the board, the follow-up. Maybe we come to visit
Love that.
Yeah,
Can we
enjoy that.
bring you guys?
Absolutely. Just to give you a flavor of what we can have a meeting room, we can show you one of the units, you can meet a resident, certainly introduce you to staff, but you'll get a feel for how folks walk in through our spaces and how they experience our services as well. So we're happy to continue the conversation on our site.
That's what I thought I'd said, so yeah.
Thank you.
Great.
Hey,
Well, thank you guys.
I
Appreciate it.
admire what you're doing.
Thank you.
It's important work.
And we
I
admire
speak-
what you guys are doing.
I
Thank
speak
you.
as somebody who stumbled as a young person, so.
Thank you. We appreciate that.
Thank you.
Gentlemen have business cards also.
Do you? Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, brother. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. Grateful.
Great to see you. Thank you.
Thank you. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Call me Dave.
Thank you, Matthew. Thank you, Wendell. Thank you, John.
Take care.
Thank you.
All right.
Definitely.
Okay. Next on the agenda, I'm going to bring up Kathleen McCadden, who you all know who's the Chief of Staff and oversees our Division of Empowerment, Compliance, and Opportunity, and also Tamika Edwards, who's our Acting Director. And this is Tamika Edwards here. Great, and they're going to provide an MWB update.
Good morning. How's everyone? Thank you for giving us this time today. I wanted to come up and introduce Tamika Edwards, who will be interimly in charge of DECO. We posted the position and we're actively recruiting for the VP and Director of our Department of Engagement, Compliance, and Opportunity. Tamika, in the interim, as I said, will be leading the team, and she comes with a vast network and a lot of experience here. And I don't know if you remember, but last year she was also given an award by ESD as one of their MWBE champions, recognized as one of the better liaisons across all the state agencies and for her work enhancing utilization across the state. So I want to introduce Tamika.
Thank you and good morning. I am excited about the opportunity to introduce myself to you all, share my journey here at HCR and some of the work that we're doing in DECO at the moment. I come from the CUNY system and I started here as an intern and discovered my appreciation for affordable housing, particularly construction. I get excited thinking about the work that we do, and I have the opportunity to represent the agency statewide. So I travel all the way to Plattsburgh and all the way down to Suffolk County on behalf of our agency, sharing what we do at DECO. So it has been a 12-and-a-half-year journey, and it has been a pleasure to serve on behalf of the residents of New York. So at the moment, I want to kind of go over what we have active in our portfolio at the moment.
We're going to go to your update, like what you're doing in the program areas.
Oh, sure.
Could you tell us in a report where you saw that, what the update was? Because at the bottom it says no activity.
That's correct, because there's nothing on the agenda that requires or has utilization for the agenda. So we took all of the items, the current agenda, and we looked to see if there were opportunities for utilization or goals established or set on those particular information or action items. And that's what we included in the MWBE summaries that are included at the end of each agenda.
I don't think you sent me that one.
There's nothing.
I have a really important question. Which community school?
York, the last senior college in the system.
No, I teach at Medgar Evers, so yes.
Oh, nice.
Yes. Good to see a CUNY graduate. Absolutely.
Yes. I wear them proud on my shoulders. So, so you wanted me to go?
You just talk about DECO.
Oh, okay,
the
great.
updates.
So we are excited to share that we have seen great improvement in the participation on our projects. Much fewer waiver requests, more good faith efforts going forward. We have established better relationships with our primes and supporting them in their outreach efforts. We participate in their bid events where we can, and then we are also partnering and supporting local organizations that provide resources and education for emerging people in the construction spaces. We've worked with Youth Construct in Harlem, who they provide education to high school students in interested in the construction trades, particularly engineering. And in Syracuse, we have coordinated with the NAACP to support their initiatives as the Micron project comes into that area. And we have adopted a regional approach that looks at the specific need in each area and how we can support diverse small businesses across all of the state programs, but particularly in housing.
Two questions come to mind right off the bat, of course. One is, and congratulations on your current new position here.
Thank you.
And obviously you have our best wishes in that regard. And all of us have at some point, I'm sure, had an opportunity to be in some place else other than where we were and have a vision as to, not that things were terrible before, but I have a vision coming on that there's some things that I'm going to see done because we can always be better. So, and I'm not asking for a long dissertation, but just obviously you must have given it some thought as to what you might be doing that's different than what we've been seeing so far, please.
I think that we've used a program-related approach, looking at the specific needs for AHC or the HTFC portfolio, but I think regionally we need to look at what's happening there and kind of match our products with the need in those communities, and make sure that.
Pardon me for interrupting, but again, time is just not our friend. So just wanted to kind of get to the point. So what does that entail in terms of, you said some modification of the products that we offer? Is that what you?
Not modifying our products, but matching them more appropriately to the communities that have not necessarily been aware of their uses or how they can benefit from those products the same way.
Okay.
I think that the agency has a vast portfolio that does great things. It's just most of the local communities are not sure where they fit into the scope of HCR. So, and especially for small businesses trying to work with the agency.
Well, yes, that has been a the last 40-plus years a challenge for this organization and for the state, for that matter, not just SONYMA.
In New York City.
So that's really what I was kind of trying to get at. So how would you? So we're in October, so we see you, let's say, in December. Nobody thinks that you have a magic wand, but what might we be looking for in terms of trends or perspectives or initiatives, given what we're talking about here?
So we will see for sure the regional events that we're trying to coordinate at the moment, and we want to bring more of the sister agencies that are doing similar work into that that initiative. We've already had conversations with SUNY to make this accessible to the community at large, and we do have. I'm so excited for the goal plan. I feel like I don't want to spoil all of that now.
That's okay. But one of our things that we've really been looking at, why is there a mismatch? What are MBEs? What are they doing? What are emerging firms doing? And there's like a range of firms. There are some people who are really further ahead, the more established developers, and then there are a few in the middle, and then a lot that are really just getting started, transitioning from contractors and getting into development. And I believe, and based on our research and just our work in New York City is primarily supportive housing and senior housing. And supportive housing requires a partnership with a not-for-profit or a supportive housing provider. Oftentimes, emerging firms don't have the ability to share in the developer fee and pay all of their carrying cost and all of the cost associated with those projects. Most of us don't have experience seeking those kinds of funds. There's a lot of different capital resources that go into supportive housing, and that kind of has been a barrier, in my opinion, for MBEs, MWBEs coming into our portfolio, especially in New York City. You see more utilization upstate because there's a range of projects that they're doing, and often the projects are smaller in size, which is easier for an emerging firm to secure the insurance, the bonding, and that's kind of what we're seeing. So we're trying to be creative, and we're collaborating with Alexa Sewell's team and meeting on a more regular basis. We've created a working group to try to figure out how do we create capacity instead of waiting for MBEs to come into our pipeline. For 2 years, we've already had a set aside on the 4% side. So on the as of right, any MBE can come in and bring us any kind of project. That was instituted about 2 years ago. And we've seen some traction, but not the kind that we were really looking for, not the kinds of projects coming into the pipeline. On the 9% side, we have a set aside of tax credits for MWBEs, so they don't have to compete in the general pool. And that has helped some of our MWBEs who were struggling to compete and actually win awards. New York City is our most competitive market on the 9% side, and there are a number of priorities, including our Vital Brooklyn projects, our state-owned sites, and so it makes it really difficult for us to reach those projects. But now with the set-aside, last round, we were able to reach some MWBEs, but again, not enough. So how do we create capacity instead of kind of asking people to come in? We don't have city-owned or state-owned sites the way New York City is able to RFP sites. You see a lot of even the established developers outside. Meredith Marshall may be the exception, but most of them are getting RFPs from city-owned sites, NYCHA sites. They're not acquiring private sites, and that's really what we do. Most of our financing is attached to private sites. So there's like a clear mismatch in what MWBEs are doing and the financing that we have. And we have to figure out how to bridge that gap, or we're going to keep having this kind of like marginal, these little victories around the margins, but not seeing the kind of success that I think I'm looking for and that I know you're looking for.
If there are ways, certainly there are ways to incentivize the major developers that, or the primary developers to work with minority-owned firms. And have we been looking into that? And the example I give was that at one point there were no black law firms in the Red Book. There just weren't. All right, and the only way you could get into the red book is that you had to be bond counsel on a transaction, but you couldn't be a bond counsel on a transaction until you were in the red book. It's just like a vicious circle.
Exactly.
So what ultimately happened was that we did this here at SONYMA, as a matter of fact, is that we asked, and I put that in quotes, whoever was chosen as bond counsel to work with a minority-owned firm as co-bond counsel. And then they got into the red book. And it wasn't a matter of having the co-bond counsel just show up at closing and get a check, but rather actually get involved in the nuts and bolts of how these transactions are done. And obviously, you've seen the results over time. I'm wondering if there's something analogous that can be done in terms of that, because I understand, the way it is right now, it's like, you have to get something in order to get something, but how do you get to first is the issue. So perhaps, again, with some of the developers that I've heard you just mention just now, they can be incentivized either in a positive way or maybe not so positive way, But that's right. Law firms are told you won't get paid unless you have, a minority firm working with you actually day to day, not just at closing.
That's right.
And they were very diligent about it, and they worked out fine. So I throw that out to you at this point as a suggestion of something that you hopefully do look into, because otherwise, we'll have this conversation 12 months from now, and time is not our friend.
That's right. We have some updates that Alexa will bring to you. We don't want to share all of our new policies and changes that we're making, but we are in the working group looking at how to create meaningful equity ownership on our deals for MWBEs without them having to sacrifice their developer fee. Because oftentimes when you do see these forced marriages, oftentimes the MWBEs don't share in the economics because they are unable to get the guarantees and the insurance or bonding, and then the majority developer will take or require that they give them most of the developer fee. So we're working with people to understand how to create or leverage some sort of guarantee fund, or how we as an agency can talk to our lenders so that they can be given similar treatment to other not-for-profits. And so these are all of the issues that we're working through with developers on the end who are supportive, who are giving us advice in real world, what they encounter with lenders, plus internally our teams really communicating better and figuring out how we build that capacity.
In addition to the guarantee fund, which I think is a great idea, maybe think about the pre-development costs and the startup costs, because many organizations that are getting into this business just don't have the financial wherewithal to get the land locked up, which is required, or to engage the architect or the lawyer. So the pre-development costs are really critical to just getting past go.
And to hold a site to get through our pipeline or HPD's pipeline, which is years long in the affordable housing world. So you really have to have the money to carry your staff, pay the taxes, etc.
What about
a question? I know the governor's put a focus now on underutilized state-owned property.
Yes.
And I know the MTA is also focused on that. Does that provide an opportunity?
It really has. You mentioned you saw the Alafia and the Rise. Those are two state-owned sites in our Vital Brooklyn initiative that have meaningful, significant MWBE ownership, and we were able to do that because they're state-owned sites. Yes, and we required a partnership and gave extra points in our RFPs for people who came with significant partnerships.
Thank you.
And Osborne mentioned too, actually, the Fulton Correctional Facility is a former state-owned site, and then Bayview, which they mentioned, which is the former prison on the West Side Highway, which they're also involved in. So those also
are
state-owned sites.
Lincoln Correctional Facility in Harlem, where we're doing affordable home ownership with L&M and Lemoore, who is a MWBE developer. Home ownership, significant MWBE ownership in that project as well. But that's possible because state-owned site.
The property.
That's right.
Right.
Yeah.
What about those developers who are already literate in agency practices and already have the financing? Why haven't those been reached and brought into the system? Because they're eager to work.
They are.
They just haven't had the opportunity. Why is that?
Well, I will say out of the major developers that are Black, you got Meredith Marshall, Don Peebles, Cheryl McKissick, Craig Livingston, Chris Bramwell, all of them are in our pipeline.
They're only getting a very small percentage.
Chris
of
Bramwell
work
has
that's
how many deals? 3?
Several, yeah.
Several that we're funding.
very small
No, he's the sole.
percentages.
No, he is the those are his projects by himself. He is the lead developer. Meredith Marshall, he does deals by himself. Same thing with Craig Livingston. They're not co-developers. These are their projects in our pipeline. Thomas Campbell is another
Yeah.
one. Thank you.
But a
In
lot
our
of these
pipeline.
guys aren't meeting their percentages.
They are.
They're not in compliance, some of them, and they're not meeting their percentages
You
and
mean in their
stuff.
utilization?
And some of the things that we were looking at, they're not. And then some of the things that are being brought forth.
2 different things. I want to make sure we're talking about the same thing. To lead developers and utilization. What we provided in the report that you're talking about, which everyone doesn't have, that's utilization by our construction. So those are subcontractors employed by the general contractor for the project. Those are construction trades. That's separate and apart than what I was referencing, which are developers in our tax credit pipeline. Different.
And the reason that there are not more
In which
activity
one?
and use, development.
In development, what is where I believe where I started is that what they're doing primarily in New York City are city-owned infill projects. A lot of them are acquiring sites through city RFPs. Only a few, like the big 5 that I mentioned, have the ability to acquire private sites and hold them and take them through the affordable pipeline. You have Meredith Marshall. He's probably the only Black developer who's doing 421A deals. He has a ton of beautiful projects in Southeast Queens. He's taking advantage of 485X, the new version of 421A. He's the only one who's doing that. None of the other developers are at that stage yet. So as I explained, there's some at the very top who are doing incredibly well. They're doing gangbusters like Jamar from Essence Development. He has projects here in Chelsea. He has projects in Illinois. You have Don Peebles. He has a project in Boston. Even Craig Livingston. He just did a tax credit project in Atlanta. And he has some projects in Oklahoma City. But they're at the top of the range. They're probably the exception, not the norm. Most are in the middle where they're still competing and applying to city RFPs. The Brisas of the world, the Genesis of the world. And then you have people who are starting off as contractors doing projects through our Legacy Cities program where they're trying to transition into developers. So we're trying to meet people where they are and give them resources. And it's not easy because, it's not one size fits all. So we're trying to be flexible and create programs and products that kind of reach the range of where MBEs are.
So other than the youth program, which we had discussed prior with Carrie.
Yes.
What new ideas are you bringing to the table?
With the Youth Construct program?
No, with
or other
your
things.
ideas with other things. Because that was a Carrie's thing.
Right. So I've been really interested in connecting for the subcontracting level with those trade organizations. We did a sponsorship with the Metropolitan Black Bar Association, and we want to continue reaching out to those types of organizations as well.
Unions and such, and how are you engaging them?
Say that again?
And the unions and such, and how are you engaging them?
We haven't engaged unions.
Most of our projects don't have union labor unless it's some sort of federal resource. Most of our work is not union. So we don't work with the union.
That doesn't mean that contractors don't.
And they do, that's right.
But it's not a requirement of the state funding, usually.
Can I ask a question? Me in Syracuse?
Please.
Just this morning at the prior meeting, we were looking at a contract for Section 8, which, as I was reading the materials, I didn't get a sense that that particular company that we're looking at to provide the bid is really committed to DEI or meeting any guidelines around that area, right? So, and I was told that it's under review, right? Like the contract is under review for these issues. So what do you look at when you're reviewing contracts like that? This is the CGI contract, right? That's before you to determine their commitment to DEI in their workforce and in the work that they're doing. Because I'm not sensing that this particular company has a good track record.
Well, it depends if we believe the work can be done themselves or if there are subcontracting opportunities. In this case, if I remember correctly, it's an inspector's contract. So this is a little different because these are inspectors they would hire that would go into people's individual homes. So I think the insurance liability and other factors, but we are asking them to find ways to increase utilization, even if it's not on the on the actual inspectors. Could there be other ways in their professional services? And we've asked people in these situations to sign an attestation form where they are committed, and where there are opportunities, they will find utilization. And so they're checking in with us on a quarterly basis. We're with the compliance specialist, asking them constantly, are there opportunities? And we try to help suggest professional services using our goal setting software to try to identify available firms for them to utilize. But you're right. Some of these contracts, especially that are highly special, there's not always opportunity for subcontracting, but we try to push them as much as we can.
Well, two things. One, I'm sorry, did you have another question, Ms.
I
Guerrero?
just want to say that they have other contracts with us, and how are they performing on those contracts, right? Is there a pattern with this particular company that is happening across their other contracts as well? Just curious,
Yes.
My curiosity, right, and my personal commitment here. So I just wanted to put that out there. The other question I have, if I may, and then I'll be quiet. How do I refer new developers that are coming to Syracuse? Who do I refer them to in your organization, right? To give them kind of like a primer on New York and how to help them get into the pipeline. Because I'm getting a little bit of feedback from my community, from some new developers here, that they can't penetrate the agency. So who do I send them to?
So we have regional reps that do sort of intake for developers and sort of go through our suite of programs. So I'll send you and connect you to the person who covers Syracuse, and then he's happy to meet with as many new developers as there are and go through, we have, depending on the size and the thing, and he can sort of go through the different funding opportunities we have. Definitely happy to do that.
But DECO is here, right? Because we know that people hit barriers and they are unable sometimes to penetrate people's favorite developers or organizations or relationships, established relationships. Yes. So that's what we're here for. I do a lot of that engagement here, leading the team. Tamika does it, and our specialists that are here in the region. That's a part of the reason why we want to hire someone in Buffalo and Syracuse, so that we have someone on the ground to establish those relationships and develop that local expertise.
What's the budget for DECO?
I can get that for you.
Just roughly.
Oh, I don't have the number in front of me.
616,000 was the request. How much was actually provided?
I'm sure it was established, but I'll pull it up right
Sorry, you're
now.
asking the budget for, I missed the beginning
The
part.
budget for DECO
Hold on
and
one second.
the diversity
Here we
portion.
go. I have it right here. The total budget for DECO. Let's see.
You probably want to be aware of that as well, right?
Of course.
Oh, she has it.
Okay. You have it already?
Yes, the budgets are
Chinchilla.
April 1 to March 31, so you can spend all the funds anytime during the April 1 to March 31, and then it re-up.
Yeah, but the request was put in. Tamika, you know what the request was?
Yeah, that looks like it's about 89.
This is total. This is our OTPS budget. I'm sorry, I have to get the actual, the total, but I'll get that back to you.
Hold on.
Sorry, go ahead.
So the request was 616,000. They actually received 105. DECO itself only received 76,000.
That's not DECO.
No.
So the budget for the DEI committee, they
Okay.
asked for 500,000, which was a lot.
600.
Most budgets, most program areas that are actually delivering and doing work don't have a budget of 500,000, but we gave them a budget of 105,000, which includes the money for training, engagement, and when the chief diversity officer, who starts, I'm excited to say October 24th, comes in, he will be able to create his own budget, which will include what he needs to staff his office, provide for his travel, any kind of engagement opportunities, publications that he may want to, or professional associations he wants to join. All of that will be considerations that he can include in his budget.
So DECO received the 76,000.
DECO has a totally separate budget. We have an OTPS budget, which is our salaries, our travel, our associations, and that's about $90,000. But in terms of our overall budget, I have to go back and look at that. But the commissioner has excitingly agreed we're going to pay for our diversity, our supplier diversity software. So the agency is going to fund that project, which is really great, which is outside of our budget. But I will get you those specific numbers, the OTPS numbers, and DECO's budget, which is separate from the DEI committee.
Yeah, because that's what I had asked for before, because with the diversity officer coming in, I had asked what was going to be the salary for the diversity officer and also what the budget was supposed to be as well. And the reason I had asked that was because there was supposedly a commitment from the agency that they would provide the funding to make sure that the things that we were requesting, there would be adequate funding to be able to do that. And the things that B is asking, for you guys to be able to answer those questions, which haven't been able to be answered since we've been on the board.
Which questions haven't we answered specifically?
We're talking about them afterwards because the report we're not supposed to talk about right now.
Okay, I look forward to that.
What I'm hearing is that there's certain, I guess, obstacles, if we could say, to trying to do things differently. You're talking about various legislative issues or policy issues, as the case may be. He represents the Speaker of the Assembly. All right, I represent the majority leader of the Senate. The chair is appointed by the governor. I think you see where I'm going with respect to that. If there is something that needs to be done differently, then we need to hear that, and we can at least advocate for that. I wish we could guarantee anything but that the legislature might do. But if it's a matter of changing the rules of the game, if you will, because that's what I'm hearing, is that but we can only do X, or somebody can only participate if they do Y, and so on. It's not magic, okay? And if something needs to be changed to facilitate the changes, otherwise, we will continue to have these conversations, and we'll make incremental changes, but not fundamental changes. And I think it's fair to say we're all here to see fundamental changes with respect to this. And this agency is a multi-billion-dollar organization, and we can't do anything differently than before with respect to minority interests, except try to find some way on the margins. Well, that's part of it. I've said before, I think some of the major players can be incentivized, and I put that in quotes, to do the right thing, because if they don't do the right thing, then there's there's another narrative. But if there's actual legislative policy, regulatory changes that need to be made, the legislature is going to be back in business in January. It's a very short window, but let that be the challenge. But we don't know what that is right now specifically. I'm hearing generally, but perhaps the council and so on can give us some guidance, and we will move that forward. We just have to do things differently. Okay, I don't know how long any of us will serve on this board, but however long it is, I'd like to be able to say that we assisted in making a difference here, and particularly with respect to this program. And it's not casting any blame, but if we're not seeing that kind of progress being made, then tell us what needs to be done. That aside from whatever you can do in the position going forward, that's going to make things different. Okay, just incremental changes are just not. It's just we can't do that anymore.
Thank you.
Thank you both.
Okay, so we'll hear something back, I take, with respect to this, right?
We have a plan to report in addition to the monthly reports that you'll see at the end of each agenda. We'll also give a supplemental report each month so that you can see better insights into some of the policy changes Alexa's making on the finance and development side, our liquidated damages. You'll hear about the goal plan in December, so we'll be ready to hopefully
I understand
bring you
that,
more
but
fully into the work.
but with respect to proposed or
Yes.
policy, just with respect to legislative initiatives that could perhaps be moved forward, time is not our friend here, right? And so whatever we're, in addition to what you're talking about, which is fine, I think it would be helpful to the board and then those of us who like to try to take some and be assisting in the progress that we're trying to make here is that we can go to our principles, but we have to have something to say. Okay, so so I don't know if that's part of just a general monthly report or something that perhaps has to be done a little bit more quickly.
That may take more of us to give some input and thought to. If you're talking about potential legislative changes and things like that, that's, I think we can focus primarily on programmatic involvement, but we should all give some thought to what the potential legislative changes may be. That could, that's really beyond, I think, the scope of what. But if there are roadblocks in particular that you're aware of, then, we can talk about it.
Well, with all due respect, what I heard said is that there's certain policy, legislative barriers to doing certain things right now, policy barriers. And if that's the case, I would hope council and along with the appropriate staff can say, well, if the rules, regulations, law said X, we could do more. That's what we're looking for, and I would expect that to come from council. Yeah, you're right. We can comment on it, but hopefully, in some limited period of time, we can have something to say to go back to our principles. Right now, I can go to say this to the senator. Yeah, we're trying to come up with something that'll make it facilitate more engagement of minority business. What is that? Okay, so she might say that to me nicely, but I think I'd like to have something more to say than that.
This is the year. They're renewing the MWBE legislation, so this is the year.
Fine. So hopefully we can get something from again from council and staff that will give us some guidance. I don't want to just say to the senator, we need more change. Right? That's not going to be useful. Okay. It doesn't have to be a whole legislative tome, but just something that because they have staff as well.
Budget priorities. The pre-development fund guarantees all of those kind of suggestions. We can come up with a list of things we think.
And also what I was hearing is that there's certain barriers that in terms of the kinds of capital that people need to bring to the table before they can even be in the ballgame.
That's a legislative fix. That's more of a function of the market and how people and capital and the availability of capital. And that I don't think is a legislative fix. It's more of a money fix.
Well, again, with all due respect, let's see what you can come up with, okay?
Fair enough.
We'll take it from there.
Thank you very
Great,
much.
thank you both.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time. And we have one final agenda on the SONYMA board, which is a technology roadmap update. And Tom Miller, who is our Chief Information Officer, is going to present on that.
Oh, how you doing, Tom?
Morning. I think it's still morning.
Got a couple minutes left.
Just to give a quick update on the technology strategy, I first wanted to just sort of frame kind of what the structure and technology support structure is of the agency, because it will help give some context into some of the downstream strategy. As I'm sure you're all aware, we talk about HCR. HCR is really a collection of individual agencies, DHCR on the state level, HTFC, and then the public authorities that we are here for, HFA, SONYMA, AHC. Those 5 or 6 agencies are supported in 2 ways. The state IT group called ITS supports 100% of the technology of DHCR and HTFC. And HCR has its own IT function that supports HFA, SONYMA, and AHC. I spell that out just because that in and of itself creates some complexity in delivering technology services to HCR. We have 2 networks, we have 2 different infrastructures, we have 2 different support groups from both an end user support and an application development support perspective, which makes it, in many cases, makes it difficult for the HCR employees who, while they may be employed by a single agency, do work across the agency. And from a technology perspective, what that means is oftentimes they need to access resources that live on one network, but they work on a different network and they can't get at their resources. And so, again, that makes our ability to deliver technology to serve the agency more difficult. So that plays partially into the strategy. We're working with our colleagues at ITS and the New York State Cyber Command to effectively see what we can do to merge those two sort of separate support structures. So to address the networking aspect, the infrastructure aspect, and the security aspect. And then the other portion of the strategy, which is really typically where most IT strategy focuses on, is on the application portfolio. So today we still have a relatively large percentage of our application portfolio on really, in some cases, quite outdated legacy technology, as well as technology that historically was deployed program area by program area. So a lot of siloed technology solutions. All the presentations that happen here, in many cases, are about grants and the application of and allocation of grant money. From a technology perspective, we probably have 5 or 6 different grant management solutions supporting the different program areas that provide grants. And so from a strategy perspective, our goal is really to try to shift from that and deploy enterprise-wide technology platforms to serve the agency. And our focus right now is on really 2 main platforms, SAP, which is a ERP or Enterprise Resource Planning package for all of our back office functionality, so finance, HR, treasury. And then we're in the process of deploying Salesforce as really what I'll call our front of house and externally facing platform to serve all of our external facing functionality, so functionality that citizens of New York can actually access to work with us, and our teams here that actually administer the grants on the Salesforce platform. So that's sort of the strategy, is to shift off of legacy technology and update legacy technology, but to deploy enterprise solutions as opposed to siloed program area specific solutions. In terms of the roadmap and how we are trying to address that, so, and this isn't starting now, in 2021, we deployed ProLink, which is really a project and asset management package to help manage the proposal of projects and the delivery of projects into buildings and our assets. In 2021 and 22, we did quite a lot to strengthen our cyber infrastructure, just to protect the assets that we have. In 2022, we deployed SAP, which was a project that ran for quite a long time, but ultimately deployed in 2022. 2023, we deployed a new Emphasis, it's called Emphasis Elite, to be our rental assistance in Section 8 program to help administer our Section 8 program. We're currently working now on a new housing search solution. So a solution that will allow citizens of New York to log on, find available affordable housing, and submit either an application to be in a lottery to potentially win one of those units, or enter a wait list to be on the wait list for one of those units. That's right. That project is well underway and scheduled to be deployed in early 2025. 2 of our mainframe-based legacy applications, we are currently starting to kick off a project to re-platform them. That may not be the ultimate final solution for that technology, but we feel it's an important step in our roadmap to just get us off of that legacy technology. We're literally at the point where there's no more resources to support it. The technology itself is at risk of failure. So that's a 2025 initiative. Again, I mentioned the alignment of our IT group and the ITS and New York State Cyber Group is something that we're planning on addressing in 2025. From a SONYMA perspective, we have an old version of a product from Emphasis that supports all of our SONYMA lending activity. So 2025, we look to do an upgrade of that environment. And then in 2026, there's a front-end component of that, which is what we use to interact with the public. And so there'll be a modernization effort of that. It's called SONYMA Express. But 2026, after we upgrade the back end, we'll look to modernize the front end. And then the grant management aspect that I talked about is something that we're doing a lot of business analysis, requirements analysis on now, and we'll look to roll out an enterprise grant management solution kind of over the 2025, 2026 time period across the different program areas that do grant management. And then we're also just hopefully about to kick off a project to replace our legacy rent regulation application. So our Office of Rent Administration and potentially in the future our tenant protection unit, which deal with, it's really case management, where tenants have an issue with their landlord, they log a case, we help arbitrate the case, is a project that is hopefully going to be kicked off shortly and will probably be an early 2026 deployment. So at a very high level, that's sort of the roadmap over the next few years, a little bit of what has already occurred and the roadmap of the next couple of years. But from a strategy perspective, again, it's really the focus is the shift from siloed legacy program-specific applications to enterprise platforms that can serve the need for all of HCR.
Can I ask a dumb question? 90% of what you just said went over my head. How does this relate to the BAM project, which was, a major undertaking for us?
So the ERP that I referred to, SAP, that was the application that the project BAM delivered. So BAM was an acronym that really was the name of the project. Business Applications Modernization. SAP is the application or the product that was actually implemented as part of BAM. And so that's been deployed in 2022. And again, serves the needs of our finance, treasury, HR, really most of the back office functions that go on here.
What's the proposed cost?
Of all of that, we don't have it yet. Honestly, no idea. We haven't even begun to price out some of the future state things. The deployment, I think one of the pieces, or part of the rationale for why we want to deploy enterprise applications is that they are expensive, right? SAP is an expensive application, Salesforce is an expensive application. But as we deploy them and establish them as platforms, our ability to deliver new functionality becomes easier and less expensive because we're not procuring and buying new siloed applications every time.
That part I understand, right? But again, I just said ballpark. There must be some number beyond which we don't need to go.
Well, I think I would add maybe somewhat, you covered like a broad, some of that is DHCR, some of that is HFA, some of that is SONYMA, so and they all have their own individual budgets. So I guess we could sort of talk about within each sort of entity, there's kind of different technologies for next year and for the year after and the year after. So I think we probably didn't do
that's a hard question to answer, right? In addition to the fact that we haven't priced out the implementation of all of that.
I understand, but if
if
I ask if you're going to buy a car, you say, well, it's probably not going to be a $200,000 car. Right? I'm just saying, just some ballpark that we'd be looking at. I'm not holding you to it. Never mention it again, I swear.
It's probably to do all of that is tens of millions of dollars.
Well, okay. Is that 20 million? Is that 90 million?
Probably closer to 20.
Okay. That didn't hurt. That didn't hurt.
Not as big an undertaking as BAM was then.
BAM is a unique. I would say was a unique project. Much of it happened before I was here, so I'm not the best person to comment on it. I think I can say without offending anyone that the cost of BAM far exceeded anyone's expectations.
That's
for
the
a variety
reason for
of
the question.
reasons.
Because SAP is a new section of, or in addition to the BAM.
No, SAP
It's
is
separate.
SAP is the software that BAM
The software
implemented.
that BAM implemented. Okay. So with BAM, was that cost anticipated with the SAP being
Was the full
added?
Was the full cost of the BAM implementation anticipated? No, I think there were significant overruns.
Millions and millions over. So that's why I'm saying with this being in addition to that, the cost overruns far exceeded what we had anticipated for BAM.
Right.
With this, that's why I'm asking, with the additional cost, you know, how far over now are we going to be from the initial project of getting things to where you want them to be?
But all the other things that I laid out, though, aren't associated to BAM.
Okay.
Right? They're replacing other legacy applications in the environment.
Okay.
Right? So,
is this a part of the thing that's also going to be implemented through DECO, or is that a completely different program?
what's being implemented for DECO is separate.
Separate. Okay.
Let me put my question a different way. In terms of the effort, not money, but the effort on the part of the organization to pull this off, is that equivalent to BAM or on the same order of magnitude?
To do everything I described, I would say effort-wise, it would be on the same order of magnitude.
But we won't be doing them all at the same
But we won't
time.
be doing
Because
them all
BAM
at
was
the
like our
same
whole
time.
back end. It was sort of one big project. These are multiple things we're going to do over the
Just trying
next.
to get a sense of
And
the
also-
scale.
So for example,
absolutely.
And also, it's many more people, right? What BAM was about the 300 people, principally sitting in this building. Tom is giving you a perspective on strategy of IT,
Everyone.
1,000 people, the entire organization, 300 people in Queens that we never talk about at this board meeting, right? But it's helpful to understand it. Sorry to speak from the side.
Will these be overlapping systems across the system? So if one agency wants information about another agency, they'll be able
Yes.
to access that with no problem?
Yes. So
And we'll be able to get off Excel spreadsheets?
that's the goal.
Okay.
And that's part of the rationale for implementing, again, what I refer to as enterprise applications, right? Which are by their very nature integrated, as opposed to the siloed applications that was really I would say was the strategy of the organization prior. One of the ramifications of that is that they're siloed applications. And so the information that's in them, while there's some overlap in somewhere else, the two don't talk to one another. So the two platforms that I'm describing will be almost by their very nature fully integrated.
Fully integrated? Is there a redundancy?
In terms of like disaster recovery?
Yes.
Yes. So the application, and I didn't mention that, part of the other strategy of how we're implementing technology is that our goal is to implement all future technology in the cloud, right? And that is either done by, in some cases, they're true cloud-hosted software solutions. So Salesforce, if you're familiar with Salesforce, is what I would call a true cloud-hosted software solution. We don't have to set up any infrastructure to run Salesforce. We run it in their cloud, right? SAP, similarly, we run in the cloud, right? But it's not SAP's cloud, but we run it in the cloud, in our case, in AWS, right? The AWS infrastructure. And so those cloud infrastructures by their very nature are redundant, right? So we run SAP in the eastern region of Salesforce. If for some reason the eastern region of Salesforce went offline, we could spin our instance of SAP up in one of their other regions, almost automatically. That's a bit of an exaggeration, but.
No, I was going to ask how fast is the updates posted and how fast do you have access?
So the data is kept in sync almost continuously, near real time, what's referred to as near real time. So as information is updated in our instance of SAP, Salesforce is replicating that in their other regions. Not Salesforce, sorry, AWS is replicating that in their other regions. How long, so the data is virtually real time or up to date. How long it takes us to spin up that a secondary environment, it depends. In our case, it would be a matter of a few days. You could pay for it to be 100% online 100% of the time, but you pay a significant premium for that, and we choose not to do that.
And the redundancy and the sync, say that you have corruption on one side. If it's in sync, is there overlap in that corrupted file?
So does your backup get corrupted as well?
Yeah.
I suppose that's technically possible, but there's measures in place. AWS, Salesforce have measures in place to prevent that from happening.
That's different than the main.
Than the
main operating system.
Correct.
So theirs will be more protected through cyber attacks. Because if we're transferring things, I'm transferring to you, you're transferring back to me, we're in sync. If there's no lag in between anything that I give you, how do you know it's not corrupted?
There's all sorts of scrubbing of that in real time as I accept it into my environment.
Okay.
Now, is it perfect? Of course not, right? Technology is not perfect, but there are significant protections in place to scrub that information and effectively quarantine it if it's detected to be corrupt or malicious.
Thank you, Tom.
Thank you, Tom.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
With that, we don't have any unfinished business on the agenda, so we can take the steps to adjourn the meetings. We are scheduled to next meet Tuesday, November 19th. So we will see you all then, if not talk before then. And you want to close us out, Will?
Thank you. Assuming the motion and second previously entered, all in favor of adjourning the meeting, please say aye.
Aye.
The motion is carried and the meetings are adjourned.
12:13.
Steve had to leave.
Sorry?
He's still here. He went to go. What's that? Oh, bye, B. Thank you.
We can end the.
Steve
end the
is,
recording.
he's still here. He just stepped out, but he said he was going to come back. So.
Okay.
Okay.
We may not be here, but okay.
He's-
I'll be here.
I think he was talking to someone from the governor's office who's
Ask a
here
question.
on the other
Ask
side.
a question.
Ask me a question?
Yeah, hang on for a second.